Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third YouTube exclusive from the audio recordings of When Blackwater Was Just a Home Game. Now, these audio recordings have been recorded right after the session happens, often by me in my car processing what we did, and they're full of details we didn't capture at Chatwater. Now, they've been recorded on my phone, so they're not the best quality, but it's worth the listen to if you want to keep going through this deep dive into the story of your favorite adventuring party. Also, these files tended to corrupt in some areas while I was moving them around on my computer, so I've made some edits and adjustments to preserve what audio I was able to recover. You also may hear that I've re-recorded some parts, but the story is the same as it was when I told them all those many sessions ago, well before we started streaming. So turn this on while you drive, cook, clean, work, or whatever your day holds. Sit back, relax, and welcome to the Blackwater Audio Archives, the 6 Months Arc. Hello, everyone. Coming at you with your episode 58 Blackwater recap session happening on December 8th, 2019. So this episode titled At Last. So based on some quick handiwork, we now have an in-game calendar about when things are happening. So this session, the events here taking place happen on the 25th of Bamuran, which is the 10th month of the year, in the year 2379 ADW, which stands for After Dawn War. Okay, so we sit around the table over breakfast at Kamea's manor, and she tells us kind of some of the goings on that have happened since we've been away. After we left towards trying to find the Alderdawn, that was the last time we were in Wolfreen, getting Kern and Mira out of the city, essentially. So the Cora's coronation, went ahead as planned 5 days ago. But the last time Cora was seen was the morning before yesterday. She left abruptly and hasn't been seen since. The city has not been made aware of the Queen's disappearance. The council thought it best if they didn't, say that their queen had literally just been crowned and was missing, because some of the citizens may think it's a coup to try and get rid of Cora, their new queen, going from queen who was assassinated to new queen who's missing to then all of a sudden a new ruler would look kind of weird, especially when that would throw some shade on Kamea, who was the other candidate for ruler. So we, offer, Kamea asks where we've been and what's happened, and we said, it might be actually best to tell this to the whole council all at once. Perhaps we can accompany you to a council meeting, and she agrees. So she's like, well, we're going to be heading there shortly. If you have any errands to run on the way there, do so and then meet us there. So we pick up the platinum rings from the jeweler for everyone that have the Blackwater logo on them. Now everyone has rings on them that we can use to cast Warding Bond. It's delightful. Clack tries to kind of, get in Spooky's good graces again, and she rebuffs him hard again, much to his dismay. So we go to the council meeting, and Cora's not there, obviously, and there are no glitter guard throughout the city at all. Admiral Kazim greets us, tentatively, but, civilly and cordially, of course. And there at the council meeting is Nissa, Wendell, and as Kazim, Kamea, and Solgar, so a full council minus Cora. So we begin to tell the story. Spooky begins discussing some of the prehistory of Barmwich, how she knew Barmwich before the Thorn Gauges showed up, and what happened to drive her out of Barmwich, and what she saw Cora and Fildo doing with stuffing the ballot boxes. And Kokanee continues that, after returning from the Alderdawn, we explored Barmwich and what was going on in the city, and found a jail below the city, and discussed what was happening. We basically tell the whole story as much as we can, start to finish, not leaving anything out. An addendum version, for sure, a shorter version than what actually happened, leaving out some stuff. And then
Nis asks us a lot about the Illithid and wants to see them, so we agree that we would be happy to give her some of the stuff that we collected. We also say that, you know, we have Fildo, and ask what they would wish done with him, and you know, they say that they have no need, you know, that there's no love lost, essentially, and so that Neppy is going to give him a burial fit for anyone. You know, nothing special, but something fitting for someone. Then they believe us. They believe everything about us. Wendell is a little, you know, iffy, but he and Kazim and Solgar and Cora obviously voted for Cora to get her in, so beating Nissa, Andaz, and Kamea's votes for 4-3. So yeah, that's how that Cora got elected. And they decide that they will remain queenless for a time, governing as a council, because they're wanting to, you know, put in two new council members to be essentially, well, they elect a ruler, and they decide to keep all this information a secret from the public, not telling them anything. We tell them the last time we saw, they you know, are going to start to send a scouting party north of Barmwich to see the bodies lying in the circle with the spaces, and Neppy lets them know that she's tried to scry on Cora, but she's not on this plane, she thinks, but she knows that Cora is alive and angry. The council, you know, Neppy asks why they voted for Cora. What was it? And Kazim and Wendell and Solgar discuss potentially being under the influence of her magic, that charming magic. So I'm not sure. I didn't roll any insight, but I'm not sure. I was not quite convinced, but in any case. So from that, there is a informal nomination process of Kamea as queen, and then they basically say, well, you were the other choice, and Kazim regrets his decision voting for Cora. And so they basically, without a vote, but, you know, unanimously say that, you know, they would like to have Kamea as ruler, and in 6 months' time, they plan to, you know, essentially coronate Kamea as queen, which is pretty amazing, because, yeah, Kamea Skysinger, we love that. So they discuss, you know, a standing matter. The admiral discusses peace, or with that, you know, there's the matter of Svelen, and we just, you know, put forth that potentially peace might be a good option, reestablishing the teleportation circles, reaching out to King Evard and letting the past be the past, and moving forward united, to just kind of move forward as a, you know, a continent, I suppose. They also we attempt them, try to persuade them towards peace, and I think that they go for it. They also let us know that our keep was completed to our specifications, but was almost taken us over as barracks, but they saved it for us. Bless them, we love that. Other than that, they, you know, say the thank you to us again for saving the city and liberating Barmwich and doing countless other things that, you know, not many people will know about, but they know about, and that's enough. So Kamea sees us, we thank them for their time, and Kamea sees us out of the meeting, and, you know, she let us know that our belongings will be taken over to the keep. She's like elated and simultaneously like at the of what's happened, you know, with kind of going forward, but like also simultaneously like horrified with what we went through. She says something to Callie about, we will discuss this later, when Callie shows the scar on her head of where the Illithid's ripped out her brain before we put it back in. We discuss a party to celebrate our homecoming, and we invite her over to celebrate at our new place, as well as a lot of people. So on our way over to the new house, we make the decision that we don't want to take Fildo into the house, and I would rather have him, Neppy would rather have him out of her bag and, you know, dealt with, his body interred, cremated, as is their custom. So they, you know, get their things. Well, actually, I don't think we get our things yet No, we haven't gone to the house yet. So on our way back, we stop in at the Temple of Nebthissiket, and there is more activity there because the acolytes and the priestesses that Nepi had requested had been arrived about 3 weeks prior. The temple has been beautified. It's definitely not, shining and sparkling by any means, but it's much more alive than it was before, for lack of better words. So we go inside and are greeted by Softly, the Kenku priestess who has been at this temple probably for as long as she's been alive, and she's the one who oversees it. And we also meet the two new priestesses, Priestess Valax, who is a tan-skinned tiefling with small, shorter horns, and Priestess Gisa, who is a red tiefling with quite prominent horns. And so, I thank them for, making the trip and for their new work and here, and that we talk about kind of getting the temple ready and getting it functioning and getting it, more akin to what a standard temple of Nebthissiket would be in image of Philenis. I ask them if they've nominated or have a Samet being a member of the order who is the one who handles the bodies essentially after they die, and in Nepi's order they are veiled in black, and they don't speak to anybody. They only speak to the dead, and there's only a couple people that they would speak to, which would be the high priestess, the mother superior, and the dead. So we ask the priestesses Gisa and I ask the priestesses Gisa and Valax to nominate one of the acolytes as a Samet. They nominate a younger white-skinned tiefling she's about 14, and her name is Isa, and she accepts the position as the Samet. So Nepi asks her, like, do you understand what this means? Do you understand your path will be different now? And she says yes, and that she accepts it and feels the honor of that. So we get to work. I'm going to prepare. I let the priestesses know that, we're going to go, we have a body that we are going to prepare, and Nepi invites Blackwater to come join, where Gisa and Valax are like, what? Because outsiders, or as they're known in Nepi's, the word in Infernal is Ashnabion, meaning outsiders or strangers, would never be allowed to observe this process. Nepi kind of looks at them and goes, while we do things in our honor in the honor of Philenis, to honor our goddess, this is not Philenis, this is Wulfrine. We do things differently here. We make of this what we choose it to be. So Blackwater accompanies Nepi and Isa. Well, at this point, I think letters had gone, because Sean wasn't there, letters had gone to drumming with Duomo, just to kind of get himself reacquainted with the city. So it was Spooky and Callie and Kokanee and Nepi, with Finan still being away. Go with Isa into one of the back rooms of the temple where the obsidian table sits, where the bodies are prepared. So we prepare the body traditionally with respect, and Nepi lets them know that Isa is now going to perform the final ritual before we cremate the body, in which she casts Speak with Dead on the body and asks a series of 5 questions. We are to stay silent. Isa is the only one who can ask the set questions. We cannot get in the way. We cannot interfere, because that is the way of her order. This is how things are done. So Isa casts Speak with Dead on Fildo, and she asks him as her first question if there is anything that he, needs from this life before, moving forward, and he says Garl will care for me. Isa asks if he wishes anyone to be notified that he has died, and he says she knows of his passing already, which we're assuming means Cora. Isa asks if he accepts Nebthissiket as the goddess to help him through the transition, and he says, I do not accept the goddess of death, that this is only temporary. Which is alarming and not great to hear. Isa asks him if there is anything she can do to ease his passing, and he, being just a slimy piece of crap says, "Why don't you take that dress off?" So gross. So gross. And the last thing that she asks him is there is anything that he wishes to say is before he passes. And he says, "I shall have my vengeance on those who wronged me." We're also assuming means Blackwater. Then as he slips away. So that's the last of Fildo Thorngage, and Neppy explains why we burn the bodies, because the only very, very powerful magic can bring back those without a head, or their body intact. So it saves, it's a preventative measure for sure. And she lets Isa know not to use Fildo's ashes to, so in Neppy's order, they use the ashes of the dead to fertilize the soil of these types of trees that grow in a grove, or like are planted near a temple. Alamwat trees, which is one of the infernal words for death. And so she says, please don't put him with the trees, especially not as the first one. And they go, well, there's already actually been a couple people who have come to pass here at the temple, which is good. It means we're doing our job, and that our purpose is being served here in Wolfreen as a place for those and a comfort for those in their last days. I ask, before she takes Fildo and before she sets to cremating him, I ask her how Mother Hade is, the Mother Superior, and Isa says that she misses me, misses and cannot wait. They were always so excited to hear of updates, and that Neppy says she's glad to be in one place for a little while, so she can be more present, as she has been away. And while she may not be at Philenis, she can at least call more often. And Isa, and I ask them how they're adjusting, and she says, well, it's very cold here. And so Neppy agrees to get them new robes for themselves, for the priestesses, and for the 3 acolytes now, and Isa as the summit. So after that, we bid them farewell, and Fildo's body is cremated and done away with. As we're leaving, Spooky asks Neppy to cast Sending to her father, with a message that she's been counting out, and we message him to let him know that she's safe and that things are well and that Cora is gone. And he messages back that Fulric, the distillery owner who sheltered us essentially when we were hiding out in Barmwich, is running in the elections and has a good shot. And he misses her as well. As we're traveling through the city back to Kamea's house to get our things and Jar and the Petch, Kokoni hears a voice in his head. Tora, the I guess enchanter or arcanist, the mage who runs the store called the Mystics, where we had originally gone to seek information or to learn some things about the bag of golding that ate all our money. Has some information for us. So Kokoni hears that in his head, and we, decide to go there in a little bit. So we go back to Kamea's manor and pick up Jar and the Petch, and go to our keep. So our keep is within the inner walls of the grounds of the Gatestone Keep, so it's quite well protected. It's a large rectangular building with 2 towers, one on either side, left and right, and balconies, and there's a wraparound balcony on the back. We go inside, and it's beautiful. It's been built to our specifications, renovated to our specifications. The Petch playing a strong hand in that. Is a mid-sized foyer with hallways off to the left and right, spiral staircase that splits and kind of goes up either side. There's doors to the 2 towers, one tower being a guard tower and one tower being Spooky's tower, which she had requested. And There's doors to a cellar and the larder, and then there's a kitchen and servants' quarters in the back, and a simple guest room on the bottom floor. So there are 3 floors. The middle floor is two larger chambers off the stairs and with a hallway between. One of them is a dining room with windows looking out, as well as a common room area. And then there's doors into the hallway with 3 rooms in the middle with stairs up to the top floor. And then on the top floor, there are 2 rooms on the left side, a hallway, and then 2 rooms on the right side. Nebby asks, you know, where should we hang the fixture that she bought in the earth, or traded for in the earth or the air elemental plane, and we decide to hang it in the center foyer. And the pets are like, if asking us if we want them to make stone mounts for that, and we say yes please, and then at some point I'm assuming someone will either levitate or fly the thing up to hang it because it's big and heavy and we can't just lift it. The kitchen is outfitted, fully set, ready to go, but we just don't have any staff. There's food, there's pots and pans, it's all good and ready to go, and Jar's governess is set to arrive tomorrow to start making sure she is schooled and all of that kind of good stuff. So we go first into the cellar, which is quite large, and there's some wine here already from the previous owner who just didn't see fit to take it. Some very large casks, about 9 of them. And then off the cellar, there's this rough stone door that has been created into the bedrock, which we assume is the room of the Petch, that they've just, you know, the second that they found out there was the keep, they were here making some renovations and hard at work. So that there's stairs down that's beautifully carved. There's 3 bunks, a table and chairs, and they have plans to make a dojo for fighting training, because, you know, Gregor and Gorge are wanting to make, you know, and Clack wanting to have like a space to train, like all of the pit fighters did in the Earth, and the, you know, the gladiators and the champions had a dojo to train in, so they want one too, and they have plans to make a games room as well. And so then we take a tour throughout the rooms of the for the people who are present. Spooky takes the tower, I believe, on the left side, the same size as the guest quarters, and the rooms are smaller, but there's 3 of them. She has some bookshelves, a desk, a gnome-sized desk facing the window, and next to the bed, next to her bed, which is quite simple, on the middle floor, there is a tiny door that opens and with a room for Wiggles. It's almost like a diorama size, but it's perfect size for him. And then there's also a door in the back, which I don't think she tells us about, but she says that it's there. Jenny let us know that it was there, so that he can scurry around through the walls of the building. Because, you know, what's great? An undead spider just crawling through the walls of the building. Fantastic. Love it. Super, super stoked. So we go see Callie's room on the top floor next, and then there's a skylight in the top, which the Petch made, and they're very, you know, proud of their skylight, and they were talking about people, you know, designing it all wrong, so that they had to come in and fix it. There's vines and plants everywhere. It's just you know, a 4-poster bed with linens in teals and white and cream, with just a bunch of plants kind of growing all over. There's lots of natural light. It's very bright, and some curtains opening onto a balcony for her. We go to Nebby and Kokanee room next, and it's 2 rooms that have been joined together, no windows, at Kokanee's request. And so on the top floor of the keep, Finnan and Callie's rooms. On the middle floor, Letters, Kokanee and Neppy's room, and Jar's room, and then Spooky is in the tower, and then the guest room is on the main floor. So Neppy and Kokanee's room has kind of like a longer hallway kind of feel to it. It's narrower but longer, and at the back there is a hearth with a mantel and some couches around the fireplace. You walk in the doors and there's 2 armoires on the other side of the doors, and down the walls on like shelves there's just candles, tons of candles. And then there's linens kind of hanging from the ceiling. It's very kind of like Moroccan-esque. And then this like circular bed that's kind of sunken into the floor, covered with pillows and linens. And of like light blues and grays, the fabric that they had bought in the earth elemental plane. Neppy affixes this like little orb that she got from Adonis's shop that almost looks like planets, and it's like this small, it's like almost like a little light fixture, and so she can say a command word and it, you know, gives dim light as needed. Neppy, before they leave, there's also a small prayer room for Neppy for her prayer to Nephthys. So she puts some of her idols in there, keeping some in her bag, but putting some in there as a more permanent place for them, along with her diaries and the things that she writes. And then Kokanee has a small workshop adjacent to it. Before they leave their room, Neppy asks if everyone present, she can light death candles for them. So a death candle is a spell that she can cast. You should give a candle to a willing person, and basically that candle stays lit until that person dies. Death can happen through old age, magical means, combat, whatever. If the person is brought back to life after they die, the candle does not relight, but Neppy explains that there is a candle for her in Philenis, and there is, so she would like candles for everyone if they're willing. So everyone says yes, and she places the candles on the mantle above the hearth in her room. No, they're in their room, so knowing that, you know, her friends are safe. I mean, alive. Safe is one thing, alive is another. So we then go to Jar's room on the same floor. And her room is directly below Callie's room, and there's a ladder connecting the balconies. Oh yeah, when they're in Kokanee and Neppy's room, Spooky's, you know, really, really gunning for a slumber party in their room, and it seems like it's a will see from Neppy, and she suggests the common room, but Spooky's pretty set on their room. So on the balcony, the ladders are connecting Jar's and Callie's balconies. There's a loft bed with a desk underneath, books, a chest, doors out to the balcony, and before she lets us in, she has to disassemble her sweet little traps because she's so cute, and she has her doll that we found her with down in the sewers when we found her, but it's clean now. And her governess arrives tomorrow. At this point, Sean arrived, so we asked to see Letter's room, and he said that it's, you know, pretty sparse. He's got a hammock to sleep in, a squat rack, which the Petch are very interested in, and they built the like concrete blocks for it, but Letters is like, do not touch the squat rack, it will kill you. He feels a bit out of it because he's just been back from drumming, but he's invited all of the drumming friends to the party, Duomo especially. Kokanee asks, you know, Letters says he's got his books and stuff like that, and Kokanee asks him, like, oh, what do you like to read? And he says he loves to read about new topics, things that he'd never read about before, histories, encyclopedias. He like really wants to learn about birds, but his favorite things to read are diaries of people, just like learning about their life. And, you know, Neppy says, like, oh, you're going to love the archives at Philenis. You are welcome to spend as much time there as you like. Because they're all personal diaries of the priestesses and high priestesses and mother superiors who have run the order since the end of the Dawn War, 0 ADW. He's like, oh, is that why you write so many notes? And she goes, yes, absolutely. Like, my entire life is written in these journals. And he goes, all of your life? And she says, yes, everything. So he's very intrigued by her diaries. Kokanee talks to the Petch Gorge about the dojo, and the Petch are like, well, it's very exclusive, not everybody can come in. And then they and Letters have a conversation about how you have to let people in sometimes, especially like if they're going to bring home anybody to the, you know, the games room and the dojo in their room. They have to be aware of that. And Letters challenges Kokanee to a fight in the dojo when it's completed, and I think there was some mutual challenging there as well. So we start realizing that, oh crap, we have a party to host tonight, but nobody to cook. So Callie says, well, I can cook, and Neppy says that she'll help. So she actually starts to, you know, before Neppy, she starts to kind of whip up a meal, but before Neppy does Letters asks if Neppy can cast sending to Volketh, and Neppy's like, he's like, okay, well, can you just send, Volketh letters, and then his song, like the do 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 do. So he gets Neppy to send that as much as she can with 25 words, and Volketh responds in common, because he's a butt and obviously could speak common. He says, "Thank you for my freedom, but our relationship is over." Neppy sends back that, like, "You were so rude, you left, you should have at least said thank you to Letters, he was kind to you. I understand that you needed to leave, but a thank you would have been nice." And he responds that the relationship is over and don't contact him again. What a butt. So rude. Neppy was displeased about that whole thing. But Letters seemed fine with it. So Neppy helps Callie a little bit with the cooking, help getting her started, and then we go to the Mystics to see Tora about the bag of golding, and we explain to Letters about what it was, because he wasn't with us when we discovered that the bag was bad. Letters flirts with Tora a bit, but it goes poorly, and I think she thinks that he comes on a bit strong, and it was just a bit much. She asks him to leave as he tries to convince her multiple times to come to the party tonight, and she was almost going to come, and then she definitely was not going to come. So we inquire about the bag of golding, and we discover that the type of magic, unlike a bag of holding, this bag, rather than acting as like a demi-plane or a storage place, acts as a tunnel. It's very powerful, and it could be possible to temporarily expand the tunnel with an enchantment, likely, mage tunnel. And then the magic has been altered. It's smaller and more permanent, and it's like she feels like it's a wormhole within 1,000 miles generally. We may need Nissa's help to see if we can go through. To the extent of the amount of pyrite or all this kind of stuff, we're thinking about a mining operation or a mining colony. She knows that there are at least 7 or 8 other bags that she's seen that have been disseminated through merchants spread throughout the continent. And the only mines that she knows that could operate on that kind of capacity to be, churning out that much pyrite would be mines in Wirang Dun, which is north, near the Sisters, which is past. So if we were continued to go north from Barmidge, we would go through the Crinewood to Icemeet and continue north from there. You would eventually get to Wirang Dun, and then the Sisters, which is a peak mountain range of 3 mountains at the far back of the top right, I think, of maybe top right or top left of, north. It's north, very far north. Anyway, so we thank her and decide at some point that we will check in with Nissa about that. We'll figure out how to do that. We head back to the house in finer preparations for the party. We have the Petch bring up the wine and tap the keg or the cask, and some of Letters' friends from the drum circle arrives, Drumroll arrives, Tad the bartender arrives, Jayla the armorer arrives, and Letters introduces her to Tad, and it's like, he's a fantastic wingman. It's great. The priestesses and acolytes arrive because she'd arrived at them. Neppy had invited them, and they look a little unsure of what to do, and Neppy, says it's okay, like, you can have fun and relax, like, this is a party like many that we've had at Philetnus, like, please enjoy yourself. And the drum, they start, Duomo sets up and there's some drumming, so the priestesses start having a little bit of letting loose and having a little bit of fun. So Callie takes Kamea over in a corner and kind of gives her the letter from her mom, and she, Kamea is so pleased that Callie brought it and is very happy to have Callie back. And Kamea says that, she doesn't know how long Callie's going to be in town, and she worries about her and she misses her, and she wants to give her something to make their arrangement of whatever they're doing a bit more permanent. So Kamea, I think she says she didn't have any rings, and then Callie pulls out some rings and says she was planning to ask the same thing, and it's this like wonderful moment where they were both going to propose to each other. Oh, and it's great. Jar watches the whole thing, and she comes over to us and says that Callie and Kamea were crying, but they were happy. So we kind of go over to them and be like, congratulations. And they decide to set the wedding close to the time of Kamea's coronation, a couple days before. then the party really starts popping off. Spooky letters start just cast like fly on people. One of the priestesses, Valak, starts drumming, and I think letters cast like enlarge on her, so she's like big, and like it's just everybody's just throwing magic all over the place, and it's great. There's dancing, there's drumming, the wine is flowing, and for the first time in a very long time, Blackwater just has this wonderful evening just filled with joy. And they're able to take a breath and relax. I'm surrounded by friends and those we care about. They celebrate late into the night and eventually find rest. So it was at this time that Tim let us know that we would be, between this session and the next session, taking a 6-month time jump. So everyone is to decide what they would like to have happen within those 6 months. So I have made a calendar, which I have shared with, I believe, everyone, I think, about of the years, like, so the 2375 and 2376. So if you're needing to plan out your time and how much time you actually have within the calendar, it's there. There are holidays in there. We might be easier to, you know, go at it month by month of what everyone's doing to kind of get a sense of like what you want to accomplish. If you have any questions about how much you can accomplish in 6 months, feel free to check in with Tim, because there is obviously some time limitations. Even though some stuff doesn't take long, some stuff does. So we will come back on the eve of the wedding, then, or maybe a couple days before the eve of the wedding, and when we do actually end up starting the actual gameplay again. But I think our next session, which is going to be happening on December 22nd, which will be the discussion of those 6 months, and we'll probably cut to bits and pieces and scenes and make a lot of rolls about stuff to see if we can actually do what we plan to do during that time. But the eve of the wedding is the 27th of the month, called Corshanel, in 2376, as their wedding will be on the 1st of Elomin, Elomin being the month dedicated to Melora. I thought that was fitting. Okay, so as I said, next session this Sunday, yes, 22nd of December, usual time, usual place, and love you guys. And is it Sunday yet? Hello everyone, back at it again with your episode 59 recap for the Adventures of Blackwater, episode happening on December 22nd, 2019. I almost have my voice back, coming to you in my car in the middle of the rain with my baby monitor on my dash. Don't worry, it extends. I'm being a good parent. So in game, this session covers the 6-month time jump between the 25th of Bamiran 2375 and the 27th of Corshanel 2376. So we're talking about almost a 6-month time jump. And the title of this episode is After All This Time. Okay, so we're going to jump around a little bit. Some things that happen. So we start off and we cut to Letters and Spooky early on in the 6 months. Letters approaches Spooky and says, hey, I need help with a magic heist. So they travel down to Croton's Cross and they meet this French guy, well, not French, but he sounds French, named Latour. So he can give them a disguise self spell. And he wants the jewelry of Kamea Skysinger in case she becomes queen, because they've heard rumblings that she will be crowned the next ruler because Cora is gone. That's not, shady at all. He makes no bones about it that he is a criminal. And Spooky's just like, when you going to do a magic heist? Are we going to go steal this thing? And Letters is like, no, we're going to go just ask Kamea for it. So they go see Callie and Kamea at Kamea's house. And they ask Kamea for a piece of jewelry. She gives them a set of white gold and wooden earrings. And they still have another hour before they go meet Latour again. So they go to Montage, their favorite bar, and they drink a lot and get their portraits done. And then they give Latour the jewelry, and then he just disappears. Yeah, he just disappears after he gives them the spell of disguise self. That just doesn't seem you know, legit at all. Pretty sure they got heisted, and Letters just keep starting inviting people to the wedding. Spooky then leaves for Barnwich pretty soon after that, so she meets up with Fulric while she's there during the election primaries. There's 3 people running for the governor of Barnwich, someone named Hela, Coramin, who we met, son of Horlin, one of the older guards. Hela's also military, and then there's Andella, who is a gnome merchant, and Hela and Coramin are both halflings. So the alcohol that we ordered from Fulric's distillery, the 5 barrels of gin, the 1 barrel of wedding gin, very special, like scent, like aromatic gin, 2 things of cider and 2-3 of ale arrive at our new place. So we have lots of alcohol plus all the wine in the basement. It's great. Fulric is doing way better, and Barnwich is doing way better, and the distillery is doing wonderfully. Fulric welcomes her home, as Spooky'd been wanting to come home for some time. Spooky's mom and dad had wanted Fulric to run for governor, and they've been trying to convince him to run, and he's like, well, I'm not sure, I'm going to need some help, and Spooky tries to convince him to run as well, and that saying she'd help him with the campaign, and after some very good persuasion rolls, he is in, and he's going to run for governor of Barnwich, and Spooky spends a couple months campaigning for him. So a couple months down the road, election night comes. It's a close race between Fulric and Andella. Hela and Coramin had kind of been lagging behind in their races early on just because there was still the doubt of the soldiers and trusting the guard. And Fulric wins. And there's an alliance being struck with Wulfrene, which is great. People are still pretty wary of Cora. She hasn't been seen since she left. And so people are, you know, pretty wary of that, but they're wanting to form the alliance with Wulfrene to kind of get things back on the road. Spooky finds her Uncle Garmo as well and helps him recuperate, and he lives with her dad and mom, and everything is going well, and she helps him get working and connected and seeing that he's taken care of, and he's starting to be able to fend off the paranoia. Okay, so Spooky spends a lot of her time in Barnwich, finally home and just getting connected with her family again, and she tries to rouse up some funds to get working on this steam golem that she is wanting to do. Doesn't quite be able to make the amount of funds that she needs, but she's on her way. So Letters, a few months in, Neppy is walking out of the bathroom after a bath late at night and hears some rumbling from under the house. And she realizes it's coming from the cellar, so she goes down, and there's the door to where the Petch are is closed. She knocks on the door, and Letters answers. The rumbling is for sure coming from behind the door, and they say they won't let her in, it's secret business, and she just wanting to make sure that the house is okay. And she says, well, that's fine, like, do what you need to do. Can I be of any help at all? And they say, no, you're not a gravel boy. And she's like, okay, that's fine. And then she asks Letters about help with the brain distiller. And then he like immediately gives her the password to let her in, which is Gravel Boys for Life. And it's not just a password. It's like a way of being. It's a way of living. So the Petch decide that it's they've carved out quite an extensive area, and they've really like sunken the dojo down to help make it's like about 50% complete. There's a bar down there. It's carved out of stone. They're like really quite getting underway, and there's a room at the back, and Neppy is inducted as a probationary gravel boy. And they show her a space for the brain room that they could set up. So she essentially gets to work helping them with a pickaxe and is, you know, a diligent student of that and helping out wherever she can. She, after just wearing a bathrobe, goes up and gets changed into like something more appropriate to do some work in, and she helps occasionally when she can, using stone shape and melding into stone as jokes for the Petch, and also helping out. Probably not as often as they would like her to, but she's got a lot of work to do, but occasionally when she can help out. And they start, you know, getting work reassembling the brain distiller. And that's a couple months in. As well, kind of at the beginning, Kokanee begins work on the Temple of Arathis. The building is shaped like a cog. Nissa agrees to help, of course, and has 12 gnomes, artisans and tinkerers come in to build. It's about 3 months of work. The final creation of the temple is beautiful. It runs on geothermal water heating. The walls go up about 10 feet, and then there's these 15-foot windows that sit on top with a mechanical shutter system, iconography of Arathis and everything all around. Everything is kind of in the round. It's a circular temple. There's an open workshop pulpit in the center where, you know, things get tinkered and worked on, in a bronze statue of Arathis. You know, Nepi gives Kokini the sword and cogs of Arathis that she'd had from, and the pirates and the statues of from Caradoc that she'd had in the bag, and those go in the temple as well. It's naturally illuminated, and when the temple is completed, he feels this wonderful sense of warmth at this communal project that has come together. And Nissa, he talks with Nissa, and I think for a long time she feels like they were just visions in her head, fragments of the Dawn War, huge cities bustling, and she finally thinks she understands that there's some part of Arathis found its way into her head, and it makes sense now. And Kokini asks her if she'd been tinkering with the gun that he gave her, and Nissa, kind of laughs and says, always wonders how much she's doing versus how much Arathis is working through her. And she says that her people, those from Shinkik, are happy here, and Kokini likes having roots in a city after being wandering, very nomadic, kind of lost for so long, feeling like Arathis works through these people to create this beautiful, wonderful temple. And Nissa thinks that Arathis was scared, wanting to protect Shinkik and afraid of being forgotten, but she's not afraid anymore. They talk about needing a curator, and in a couple days' time they go to open the doors, and time is of the essence, wanting to get Arathis back onto the sorry, the kind of stage in which she deserves. And Kokini has to write his first sermon, his first, thing that he's going to deliver to the people. He looks at the statue, and this kind of wonderful warmth emanates. Letters works in 2 days to promote the opening of the temple. He gets all of his contacts, and through that he ends up hiring Tad, one of the bartenders from one of the bars, as his bartender for the speakeasy in our basement. What? Okay. But Letters works to help promote the opening of the temple with tacos and ice cream sandwiches. It's delightful. Spooky ends up coming back. They've set up a teleportation circle between Barnwich and Volfreen, so travel is quite easy. Nepi helps Kokini write his sermon, given her experience of, speaking to people in a religious manner at her temple. Speaking to the 150, 160 people that she speaks to every day. But, she's not sure what kind of audience he'll be working to, so she helps him provide some structure, but, he's doing the core content of the work. And the temple opening comes 2 days later. The temple is packed. The shutters are open. The sound kind of carries through. There's about 500 people inside the temple, and people spilling around on the outside, wishing him well and telling him that she's very proud of him, and that she's, looking forward to hearing what he has to say. And she casts enhance ability on him for, charisma and, or actually wisdom, sorry, for his religion. And Letters gives him expertise in a religion, so that's really wonderful. And Clack gives him, reminds him to do mage armor, of course. So Kokini uses thaumaturgy to help echo his voice and does the sermon, talks about the journey of he and Arathis, and the story of how they found each other. Talks about Arathis is the reason that he's here. And one of the big takeaways from that is that Arathis is about choice, and that choice is a gift we have. The choice to build instead of run or destroy or cower. And he's been this way in the past, but he doesn't have to be this way anymore. And he's excited for what's to come, with this wonderful temple being open and, doing sermons weekly and having place for people to come and gather. At the end of the sermon, it's an old tradition for people to bring up things in need of repair, and one is chosen to repair this kind of renewal and rebuilding process. The people are wrapped while Kokini is speaking. And after, there's a lot of people meeting each other and congregating. It's this wonderful sense of community. An artisan approaches Kokini after this. She's human. Her name is Lex. And she shows him these brass cogs on necklaces that she's made, kind of similar to the coins that, the cogs, the coins from Caradoc that Torin had, that Nepi put on a string and that Finnan now wears around his neck. Lex says she made them and she felt compelled to build them. Kokini takes them and looks at their craftsmanship, and he takes them down to the pulpit, and he through some like electroplating and like alchemical tinkering, kind of Arathis working through him. It feels instinctual and normal. He electroplates the emblazon of a sun on them, and he gives them to her and encourages her to come back. People congregate and connect with Kokanee, and you know, there's lots of people kind of, you know, talking about it. And then after everyone kind of clears out, there's a couple people sitting and praying, and he looks to the statue of Arathis, and he feels like really a warmth through his holy symbol, and it almost looks like she's looking down on him through the statue. Very cool moment. Neppy comes up to him and tells him how proud she is of him, and that the sermon was exactly what it needed to be, and that she thinks Arathis is quite proud of him too. Letters also tries to set up the taco and the ice cream vendor, proving that he is the ultimate wingman. So we jump over to Callie at some point, and she checks in with Augie probably earlier on to start restarting her tattoo apprenticeship, and she tattoos him and it goes okay, and tattoos a couple other people, and after about 3 months she is proficient in tattooing, which is pretty awesome. We also cut to a scene where her and Kamea are together at Kamea's house, which will essentially be the palace. Yeah, the like the main keep, the Gatestone Keep. And they talk about the wedding. It's a smaller ceremony in the forest. They want Neppy to officiate. Have Jar be the flower girl, and they'll walk down together. They'll invite Blackwater, the council, the Patch, Neva, and Spooky, who will act as witnesses, and that they're going to invite Kamea's parents. And then among Kamea's people, the weddings are small. There's a hand fasting ceremony to signify the bond, because her people believe in a communion with nature and embracing the volatile. The volatility of nature in its kind of unbound form. So a hand fasting to signify the bond between the two, and this joining of spirits. She says that if her parents come, her parents may assume their beast form. She may also at some point, just because she's not kind of sure what will happen, and they just kind of agree to have it go as it stands. Post there will be a celebration of sorts, you know, to kind of appease everyone that Letters is invited and the rest of the town, because people will know what's happening, and probably near the temple to Melora. Callie will wanting to live with Kamea in the Gatestone Keep, and wants to take her last name to be Calliope Skysinger, Crown Princess of Wolfreen. Has a wonderful ring to it, which is wonderful. They also talk about the colors for their wedding. Kamea wants to wear this kind of like cream and green, and Callie in blue and gold. And then they talk about a family. Cut to Emma just crying in the corner. And they feel like, you know, Callie's already almost like adopted Jar, and that's where Jar can choose where she wants to live or go between the houses, with Neppy being in one place and Callie being the other place. But if they're going to have a family of their own, they want it to be when Callie will be around permanently, and they'll decide that when the time comes, which is wonderful and lovely. So they also, Kamea says, don't think we haven't talked, we're not going to talk about the stuff with the brain, your brain getting sucked out by these mind flayers. Callie asks Neppy to do the ceremony, and Neppy says, I have never done one before, I have no idea what that is, but yes, I would love to. She agrees, and she, is going to consult with the priestesses and priests of Melora, and kind of gets right to work. Neppy loves a project. And Callie asks Spooky to be the witness, and she agrees. Coney asks Callie about tattooing him. He wants a big piece on his chest or back, and she thinks, kind of constructs this together about like a cog kind of coming up as a sunrise, and it's, she does the tattoo for him, and it's beautiful. I think there's some enhanceabilities and guidance thrown around, and it's beautiful. Also, a couple other things. Kokanee is finally in it, when they, so Neppy does some stuff. Where are we here? Neppy prepares her temple for the month of Nearaven, which is the first month after, like, when we started the time jump. She spends time with her priestesses, instructing them, and she buys them all new robes and sets aside some money for them. And then during the month of Nearaven is her holy month, so she holds the ceremony for the night of requesting, visiting Torin's grave. And during the night of requesting, you ask It's a holy night on the longest night of the year. You go and visit the resting place of a loved one, and you ask for a sign, you ask a question, and you ask for a sign or an omen from them if the goddess will grant them a moment of her time. And she asks if Torin is at peace, and she goes to visit Torin's grave, and she sees a dog looking healthy, well fed, and happy. But there's an eerie shadow cast over the lettering, and the sense of contentment that the dog has fades quickly, and we get the sense that there's a restlessness to him. So she takes that in stride and gives her a lot to think about. She also holds the first Twilight's Grace ceremony, which kind of opens the temple for its duties and gets it set for its job in Wulfrene. And there are already been many people coming and seeking refuge and solace at the temple and spending their last days there. The Twilight's Grace ceremony goes very well, and they plant a new Alamwat tree in the back. She also, what else did she do? Sorry, I'm still sick, but that won't stop me from doing the recaps. That's what tea is for. Okay, so we continuing on. Neppy scries a lot on Volketh, probably like once a month to check in on him. For the first 5 months, she doesn't see him. She can't pinpoint him, but for the very last month, she sees him standing in a barren wasteland around these ancient ruins of red rock and earth. It's on this plain. He's at the mouth of a massive cave that rises up out of the ground. He's wearing leathers and armor, but the placing and the what he's wearing doesn't look familiar to her at all, and that's what she sees. She scries on Cora probably once a week. And nothing. There's no presence. It doesn't even go through, signifying that she's not on this plane. She also casts scrying on Finnan, probably once a month, just to check in on, make sure he's still alive, and he is. She casts sending to him, letting him know about Callie's wedding day and that she wants him to be there. And he says he'd be back, that he wouldn't miss it. She sends a lot of check-ins to her temple often and gets the priestesses kind of up to snuff and getting that ready to go. She visits the Temple of Melora to make sure that that's all going well, that she's doing the right things and not being offensive to anybody with the ceremony that she's creating. So then she and Letters and Kokanee get set to start working on the brain distiller. So they managed to distill down the brain of the Gith Yankee, who was proficient. He was like an adept with fighting and stealth. So she, their plan was to kind of just do it in quiet and then not tell anybody about it, and just in case it didn't work. So they distill it down to a single shot, and they're like, okay, let's get ready to go. And then they're like, oh, well, we should go get Callie, just so that, Finn or Kokanee, because the Kokanee's going to inject it to be more protected. Callie, wearing the Chaos Talisman, grabs the shot, injects herself as she flies away. It courses through her, causing her some nausea, and she feels light on her feet. She becomes proficient in stealth and martial weapons, which she already was, so there's no change to her. Letters was pretty choked because it sounded like he wanted to be proficient in those things. Neppy was very hesitant to do another thing because she didn't want anything like this happening again, and didn't want people to feel like they needed to do these kind of, I guess, drugs to almost her curiosity kind of got the better of her. But Letters was like, didn't take a lot of convincing, but was basically like, we can do it again. And she agreed to try it again at a later date. Neppy asked Callie for the talisman back multiple times, and after a long time, Callie ended up giving it back to her, and Kokanee is wearing it for the time being and attuned to it. Just in case anyone was wondering, Neppy was trying to come across a bunch of diamonds over the course of the year, and ended up finding a decent amount of them, about 600 gold pieces worth. So we have about 850 gold pieces worth of diamonds. That's not so bad. We also, Neppy gave Nissa all the items of interest from the bag of holding for her studies, plus the spell components, which she wants to identify, and Tim is going to send me that stuff later, so I will pass that on as it comes. So something else to notice, Letters receives a bunch of books every day: fictions, histories, biographies, diaries, journals. Unsure, no tag where they came from, but he receives them every day. and the week before, so we kind of finished all that stuff up. There's a couple things I think that are left to cover in our next session, which is we are wanting to talk to Nissa to give her the Illithid stuff and identify the spell components. Neppy's going to cast Legend Lore on a couple items, Kokanee Circlet, his gun, and Spooky's pants. And if anyone else has any items they would like Neppy to cast Legend Lore on, this would be past what you would learn of a identify or an attunement. This is where you would learn the history of the item. If there's anything else anybody wants Neppy to take a look at, she can do that. And Letters also wants to do some sending to Volkath and also get his secret bar furnished and look into the neighbors around. So we're going to probably try and do that. Kokanee is also initiated as a gravel boy so he can get into the dojo, which they'll probably have to fight through at some point. The Petch like meld into stone and then come back out as like a Gigapetch, like the three of them together of the rock. They fight and Kokanee wins. They sink into the stone again and the three of them emerge being like, well met, my dude, you can be here in the dojo. It's great. So that's all wonderful and great. So the week before the wedding, delegations begin to arrive in anticipation of the coronation of Kamea. So the wedding happens 2 days before the coronation. That will be where we start off at the beginning of next session. But the evening before the coronation, there's hundreds of ships moored in the harbor. There are ships of King Evard of Spell-N, our wonderful ally that we know, and General Kern Burnman probably with him, so I can look forward to seeing Kern when we can. We see emissary from the King's Cauldron in Cinderfall, High Priestess Thecoria, Dragonborn who, you know, her holy symbol, I believe, is a two-headed dragon of red and black. Emissaries from Fawe Tavar, emissaries from Barmwich, Fulric as governor, emissaries from Clore, dwarves from Weirang Dune come down, a trade caravan of Heliog Stormstone, who's the queen of the Crystal Caverns. That's cool. I know nothing about Weirang Dune and up north near the Sisters in the mountains, so that's like very, very cool. And last but certainly not least, we see this large detachment of ships, 20 to 25 of them, interspersed with some merchant ships as well. A large detachment, probably as large as that which we saw Delnis's, the ships of Delnis Deep Run, the Triton we fought at the Battle of the Docks when we were going to fight Zakkus. The ships holding on their sails the symbol of Bakal. Kokanee looks out over the harbor and a familiar ship. He realizes that it is the ship of King Velsum of Bakal. And for any of you who were paying attention or have any memory of this, if you think back to those of you who were way, way back there in the adventures of Amun K, we met Malsav Bakal, who was not a good dude, who likely, you know, did something with Spooky's pants. I'm pretty sure they're a Horcrux of some kind. And also, just for, you know, wondering of everyone, Velsum is an anagram of Melsav, okay? Pretty sure the king of Bakal is a 2,300-year-old lich, okay? It's not good. It's very bad. It's very, very bad indeed. Also, there's only one person who knows anything about Melsav, and that is Letters. Letters is the only one who knows anything about Melsav. He came across it in passing in a book in the, I believe it was in episode, I'm just flipping back here in my notes. Yes, and he was in the library on the astral plane. He looked into a book about mages, and there was a mage named Coriath, a mage named Melsav, and a mage named Jexar the Forgotten. So he is the only one who knows anything about that. Yep. Something about them being presumed dead, something about attaining power after they became overwhelmed. Yeah. So Letters is the only one who knows anything about that. But all we know is that if we were going to go to Bakal, surprise, Bakal has come to us. Dum, dum, dum. All right, that's the end of the episode. I think that's everything. We'll probably pick up next week with the couple last little things from the 6-month break, and then we will jump into the wedding of Callie and Kamea. It's going to be wonderful and amazing. Next session happening Sunday, January 5th, I believe. Same time, same place. And then after that, we will be switching back to Saturdays. I love y'all very much. And is it Sunday yet? Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening. Welcome to your episode 61 recap for the Adventures of Blackwater, session date January 5th, 2020. Date in the session, in calendar, in-game date, there we go, is the 27th of Course Channel, 2376, extending to the night of the 1st of Elohim, 2376. This episode takes place over the course of about 24 hours and is titled The Wedding. Okay, so the night before the wedding, we open with Neppy starting in on some prayers. She's communing to Nepthisiket, asking 3 questions to kind of give her some guidance before everything has started, especially with the recent arrival of the approach from the ships from Bakal coming into the Whaling Bay. Her first question was, will you allow Taya and the Order of Paladins presidents at Callie's wedding? And Nepthisiket granted yes. Next question was, are we safe in Wolfreen for the foreseeable future? And the answer was, I cannot pierce the hearts of the wicked with my sight. Likely meaning no. And the third question, will my homecoming at Philenis be a joyous occasion, with the omen of there is always joy in reunion, even in the darkest hours? So Neppy left a little unsettled by that, and potentially something going wrong at Philenis, even though she's been checking in regularly. So we're gathered at the group, Neppy comes back downstairs and the group is gathered at Blackwater Keep the night before the wedding. Dinner is prepared by our I'm flipping back here in my notes. My apologies. Our housekeeper, whose name is Orly. She's a human. We also have a guard at the house whose name is Cotis Brundle, and he's a half-elf. I sent the picture to the group chat, and he looks like Bard the Bowman from The Hobbit. Uses a longbow and a sword, and it's great. And our governess for Jar is named Ressia, and she's a half-elf as well. Sorry. So some couple little things additionally that we got that we didn't have previously before I delve into this night before the wedding stuff. Neppy had cast legend lore on Kokanee Circlet, and it's known as the Iron Circlet, or the Eyes of the Warden, and it was crafted in the twilight of the Caraxian Empire. One head of a guardian, forged but never wielded. Iron, brass, and steel rest upon the worthy. The warden awakens to stand guard over her people. So that's what Kokanee Circlet is about. Kokanee's gun is called the Will of Arathis. Crafted by the finest gunsmith of the age, named Mara Bell. A pledge made for her champion. Only the tool may choose the artisan. Through mastery comes enlightenment. So very cool about that. And then, terrifyingly enough, we have Spooky's pants, which are called Dela's Betrayal. Dela being the princess who was killed in our adventures of Amonkhet by Melsav Bakal before he fought a bunch of us and likely put some Horcrux of himself into these pants, but so goes. And yeah, so they are made from the hide of Grabdag the ambitious, bound in blood on a day most ruinous, a city sundered, bearing life to control death. So nothing ominous or terrifying about Spooky's pants at all. Nothing ominous in the slightest. Additionally, we had given Nissa all of the stuff about the illithids, and yeah, so I think that's everything. We are now officially caught up with where we're at. Okay. So we're gathered at Blackwater Keep the night before the wedding dinner's prepared by Oralee. We go back into the dining room and Finan is there. He looks different. He looks a bit older. He's got tattoos on his arms, black and white, and his hair is longer, and he looks like he's seen a bit of some stuff, and he's a bit more worldly than the last time we saw him. So we chat a little bit about the Order and the seals. Primarily that the Order of the Key has been tasked with locking away or keeping the seals that have locked away Tharizdun, and that their sense was that when they were in Clore, that they had found, had been in a meeting of the Order of the Key, and they had met a dragonborn named Bix and a human named Randall, and they had fought a demon, and through their travels and their exploits with pirates and a bunch of stuff like that, had realized that there was likely some stuff going on that were potentially seeking to open the seals of the Chained Oblivion, attempting to rise again. And the more that the seals are destroyed, the more that the madness of the Chained Oblivion tends to slip out. They know of one seal that was destroyed, the Hand of Io, which was destroyed in the ruined cities of Amonkhet, which is the one from the Adventures of Amonkhet that we delivered over to Malsev Bakal, and then it was likely broken. So there's that. And they know there is one in Clore. They talk of that the seals are, they can be things, they can be places, and they may be stationary, they may be moving, but the seals have to be protected at all costs. Very few people know the information about what the seals are, and even fewer, very, very few know the location of where all of this information is kept, which is called the study. The pendants that the folks from the Order of the transmits information to this study on everything that's going on. Funnily enough, Finan actually wears one of these symbols that he picked up off of someone way back before we left Wulfrene the last time. Yeah, so he's got one as well. Yes, so that's what they relay to us. They had been helping Bix fight some vampires, and they had gotten tangled up in this stuff. So they relay this information, and we kind of make, plan to try and check Hector, who's also in the Order of the Key, to see if there's more information, if he knows more. But the wedding is tomorrow, so a different day, or very close in the future. So Finan, we kind of everyone makes jokes about oh, let's go see your room, and let's go see how you're, what's going on. We have never been in your bedroom before, and so I think Letters goes down to the dojo. Finan goes with Letters, and Kokanee goes back to his room as well, very, of course, reeling from what's going on with the ships coming in, worry and uncertainty about his future, his own life. So Neppy goes back towards her room. On the way to her room to go see Kokanee, Finan stops Neppy and says, hey, I have to go do something for about an hour, but can you help me join? Can you help me with something in a bit? And Neppy says, well, I don't know if I can I don't know what my room is like, what the evening's gonna hold for me. I have to go be with Kokanee. And Finan says, well, if you can slip away in an hour, just for a little bit, I would like some guidance and help. So Neppy says, of course, she'll do her best. And so she goes inside their room, and Kokanee is in his workshop, cleaning his gun, taking it apart. And Neppy leans against the door frame, and Kokanee asks Arathis for help. Says that he has no idea what he's going to do and that he doesn't want to die. They talk for a moment, and Neppy does her best to console him and provide some comfort and stability, and promises him that, reaffirms everything that they had originally made promises about in Saral, and that she was going to be there for him and do her best and utmost not to let anything happen to him. She casts Death Ward on him, and promises him that every 8 hours she will cast Death Ward on him, and that she would prefer if he was no further than 30 feet away from her at all times, because of her magic and her ability to stop the most deathly of wounds and injuries, but needs to be close to people to do so, and he says that he will try his best. So she asks Kokanee if he'd like to be alone, or if he'd like to come down and join them, and that she had made a promise to go to the sleepover, but also would be there if he wanted her to. And he says, no, you go, and I'll be okay. And she said she's a message away. So she leaves, and she goes and joins Finan outside, and she watches, and she comes up as he's casting and almost taking pieces of the moonlight, and weaving them into this beautiful light and simultaneously dark kind of gossamer ribbon, that he kind of is able to, kind of weave together using the magic of that gifted to him by Relavin. And he presents the ribbon to Neppy and says, can you bless this? And she says, well, no, Finan, like, this is your gift to them. I have my gift, that it will mean much more coming from you, and you don't follow my god. You have your own patron. This is for you to give to them, and a boon from you. So he says, okay. And she asks him to, walk with her, and so they find this little ritual space, kind of a little bit closer to the tree line near their place, and she sets up a ritual circle, and she says that she's very proud of him, and that she's so happy to have him back, and that he's grown so much and shown so much promise. And she casts ceremony on him, sprinkling 25 gold pieces worth of powdered silver over his hands, over his tattoos, over the goggles that he has. And for the next 24 hours, he gets to add a d4 to any ability check that he has. And this ceremony is the coming of age ceremony. So honoring that transition for him, that growing point that she had seen within him as a welcome home. Finan asks her to come downstairs and join the party, and she says, well, I not for long, but I've got a ceremony to do tomorrow, so I can't really drink. And she says, well, I could just come. So she goes, and they go, and it is a party in full swing, and it's a raucous party. Callie slips away and goes to pray. So the next morning everyone prepares themselves for the wedding and gets dressed, and it's about a 2-hour trek to the place where we need to go to travel from Wolfreen. It's in a clearing outside in the forest. There's this beautiful altar that has been carved from wooden benches. There's ribbons and wildflowers around the bases of the trees that have been grown there by the priests and priestesses of Melora, and there's ribbons in the trees. It's beautiful. Kamea's parents are there, the council members. No Wendell DePaulo, I believe it is, and no Nissa at this point. King Evard is there from Svel N, our ally in arms, King Evard, with his new captain of the guard, Kern Burnman, who we fucking love. I love Kern Burnman. Mara, pardon me, Kamea's housekeeper is there. The Petch are there. They have something that's under a large sheet that's standing in the tree line, and there's a couple other guests that litter through. So we, everyone kind of gets into their places for the start of the wedding. I guess I could go through what everyone was wearing. Oh my goodness, can't get no page over here. Spooky wearing this beautiful emerald green velvet pantsuit, not hidden under her cloak. Wiggles is in a bowler hat and an emerald bow tie, because of course he is. Kokanee is in this like a longer white tunic shirt over lighter pants with that's trimmed with gold, a more ceremonial or formal version of his normal attire. Neppy's wearing a golden dress, high collared, with a prayer shroud and lots of like golden jewelry. She's barefoot. There's just like she jingles when she walks. When she steps. Letters in the Petch are in sleeveless tuxedos. His hair is slicked backwards, looking real fly and real fresh. Finnan is wearing this like beautiful suit of like dark, kind of ebony, like a lighter white, kind of got the same color as the ribbon, the gossamer-ish, kind of light dove gray white, and a light purple color. Callie is wearing a light blue and gold dress with wildflowers and vines growing down. She's wearing a veil. This might be the first time we've ever seen Callie out of armor, maybe ever. So shortly after we arrive, Neva approaches with Nissa. Neva's also in a pantsuit. Nissa in a kind of simple set of robes. They just look clean and utilitarian, as Nissa is. And as we start, Kamea steps through the tree line. Callie and Kamea walk up to the altar together. Kamea is in this beautiful off-the-shoulder purple dress with that's high cut on the, like with a slit up one side, and it looks stunning, of course. So Neppy stands at the front and you know, looks a little nervous and anticipatory, and begins casting ceremony. So she invites Callie and Kamea to join hands, sprinkles the powdered silver over them. Behind her, kind of a wind rustles through the trees, and one by one candle, like incense, alights behind her in multiple different places, and then a ring of candles start flickering up, and their light intensifying and brightening all around the altar place. As she does so, she looks past Callie and Kamea, meeting eyes with the people in the crowd, and there at the edge of the tree line, she sees kind of an image, a spectral, shifting form of Torin, watching in appreciation, standing at the tree line. It catches her for a moment, and it catches her off guard before she composes herself and acknowledges that he's here, and continues. So yeah, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do it. So the ceremony, Neppy starts reading. I invite you both to join hands. I'd like to take a moment to honor the gods and the wilds that grace us with their presence. I should probably do it in her accent, shouldn't I? All right. No. Oh, I'm embarrassed now. It's fine. You've all heard the ceremony before. I won't do it. I was going to get started, but in any case, Neppy calls upon the gods to grace their presence. She calls upon each of the boons that everyone in Blackwater follows: the fire, the stone, the hearth and the home, the depths of the sea, the bright of the moonlight, the strength of steel and order, to envelop everyone and grant everyone comfort and warmth and safety and peace in this holy place. She begins the hand fasting ceremony with Callie and Kamea, inviting everyone in order to come up and grant them a wish or a boon or a gift with the ribbon. Neva offers a band of leather and says, "May your bond be as durable as any to weather any storm." Nissa, representing the council, offers a silver chain. "May the wisdom of Arathis light your path, and may the passion of Balora keep your flame alight." Finnan offers a ribbon woven from the moonlight, as we said from the day before, and in the darkest moments, May you always find the light of each other's love. Letters offers a tawny brown ribbon and says, where I come from, brown represents family. Your family will support you like the earth under your feet. Kamea's parents, Galea and Rudin Skysinger, offer a woven twine ribbon from the bark of an alder tree and say, may the roots of your love grow deep. Kokanee offers a ribbon woven from thin copper wire, so it's simultaneously metal and fabric, in imparting on them too that he wishes they may both live the life they choose and the life they deserve. Yana, Spooky, offers a ribbon being one of the witnesses for Callie and Kamea's wedding, as is Neva, a ribbon of deep green. For when home feels far, remember that you always have each other despite the distance. You carry your family with you. And lastly, Neppy opens her hands and extends them towards the tree line, and coming through from behind Torin, the figures of Taya and the Order of Paladins that Callie belonged to kind of step forth to the edge of the tree line, the wind wrapping almost as if it's whipping its own ribbon around their hand fasting. So not saying anything, but there nonetheless. Neppy encourages them to remember that, you know, the days will be hard, but they will be together, and they let these ribbons that they have here, these gifts that they've been given by the people who care for them, be a reminder that they're never alone. She invites each of the two of them to fast themselves to each other. Kamea offers Callie a ribbon of olive green affixed with an owl feather and says, with this ribbon I bind my spirit to yours. I will never be far from you. Callie gives an aquamarine ribbon to Kamea, given to her by Neppy, and she says, before I left the labyrinth of glass, the last member of my order took my hands, looked me in the eyes, and said, I believe in you. It was a tradition for us to stand in a circle, telling each other we believed in each other. I've always felt like I was looking at a good friend and telling them I love you, and no matter what happens out there, I've got your back. It made me feel safe, sturdy, strong, loved, and at home. I lost that a long time ago, and I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to find anything like that again until the day I met you. I was drawn to you in a way I've never felt before. The only thing that has come close to what I feel when I look at you is knowing Melora is with me. Your warm, inviting eyes and your magnetic smile softened my tough facade immediately. Kamea, I believe in you. I believe in our love, and I believe in the journey we're about to make together. No matter where I am, I promise to come back to you because you are my home. I love you. Neppy invites Callie and Kamea to remember that these hands are the ones of their best friend, holding each other strong and close, and that the hands that will work alongside theirs, hands that will love each other and cherish each other, that will wipe away tears, that will hold their family and give each other strength when they need it. And finally, she closes the ceremony with a blessing, discussing that while she, you know, as the high priestess of her order, there's never been another wedding ever done by a priestess of the priestesses of Nipisket. They have no traditions of their own, but the gift she wishes to give them is time. She talks of the gravity and the weight of forever and the importance of it that people often miss, and that forever means beyond death. Forever means without question. Forever means unending, wholly encompassing. And she invites them to just revel in each other and their company for all of the rest of time. And she then pronounces them married. And she ends it with, may you love each other timelessly in this life or the next. You're all welcome. I did the accent on a recap. Okay, so it's a beautiful ceremony and it's so wonderful. We all cry at the end, and as the ceremony ends, the petals from the wildflowers bloom, and as Callie and Kamea kissed, the wedding area, the forest is almost bathed in this beautiful sunlight, the summer sun kind of peeking in from the clouds and from beneath the canopy, and the wildflowers snaking up the trees. It's very, very lovely. The Petch pull forward this the cloth revealing this beautiful statue carved of Callie and Kamea. It's tasteful for the pet. Rest assured, very tasteful. It looks like it's fabric. It's unparalleled craftsmanship. Callie's wings are extended, carrying Kamea, and it looks lifelike. It's beautiful. So we end the ceremony and make our way back to, pardon me, Wolfrene for the public reception near the Temple of Arathis, as everyone is kind of milling about. Torin smiles and fades away, and Neppy's the last one to see him kind of leave the tree line there. We drink celebratorily. Everyone kind of passes around some cheers, and then we head to the Temple of Arathis. The large congregation is outside. There's this amazing street party. So much of the city has shown up. It's well catered. Letters did a fantastic job. There's tacos and ice cream, and uniting the two warring or sparring, arguing people. A lot of people get on board with that. It's great. So there's a large contingent of people inside this private reception. So we see some of the other delegations. We see the Elder Council, of Faway Tavar. We see some of the dwarves from Wirang Dûn. Primarily, we see Heliag Stormstone, and she gifts jeweled necklaces for Callie and Kamea. Callie and Kamea are kind of whooshed up and are taken around the room, introduced to people, while the rest of Blackwater kind of does their thing. And we try and keep any, well, as we'll talk about in a minute, any kind of negativity away from Callie and Kamea as they get to enjoy their wedding day. Falric and the delegation from Barmwich is there. King Evard and Kern from Svelen are there. There's a group of Dragonborn, which is the High Priestess Thecoria from the King's Cauldron, which is next to Cinderfall. And then we see Callie and Kamea are talking with everyone. There are some toasts. It's a wonderful celebration, and then everyone's kind of milling around. And we see 3 soldiers in kind of like looser plated leather armor, wearing headscarves of some kind, looking like tanned and darker in skin color. And then we see this tall figure, bald, wearing almost a plated armor and clothes of black filigree and gold. And Kokini instantly recognizes this as King Velsum. He's wearing this very large black amulet around his neck. His eyes are kind of like this golden yellow. Yeah, so the second that happens, Neppy kind of pulls, before they get in there, where Neppy pulls kind of Kokini back and stops him immediately. Finnan kind of wraps around Kokini, kind of to reach him into a hug, and casts Seeming on him to make him look kind of like Kokini, but not. Just a little off. Like, it could look like Kokini from a distance, but isn't. King Velsum comes up to Callie and Kamea, and he wishes to open trade from Bakal to Wolfrene, being exceedingly charismatic and charming as he is, and talks about how he's ended slavery and hopes that this will ease trade negotiations, wanting to open up Bakal again. The party continues, and as Velsum catches Kokini's eye, looks at him directly in the face, and then holds that gaze for a moment and looks away. One of the and he disappears. He starts to disappears into the crowd. A soldier peels off towards Kokini, and he's given a letter. Neppy tries to keep eyes on Velsum and loses him in the crowd. Kokini opens the note. It is a missive from the king requesting his presence alone on the ship, the Golden Dawn. Velsum leaves. He's gone. We have no idea where he is. They don't sense to track him by magic at this point. We're not really there yet. Be like, oh, well, we'll go down. If we need to pop shit off, let's do it now. And Neppy warns of against recklessness. We talked to Kokini about Velsum, and talk of Velsum's nature. Neppy's never met him, but knows of him and knows the stories that he's very charismatic and charming, and actually quite well loved by the people, but there is a cruelty, a coldness to him. Kokanee speaks a bit about his past and the cruelty put upon him by Velsum, and that he doesn't want to die again, as he has so many times before. You know, Nepi throws around an idea of, well, we could just be underwater and breathe. I could make everyone breathe underwater, or we could be close by or something. Kokanee ends up, as I'm sure we'll discuss more in the next session, deciding to actually will go in alone, that he will go, but that's not till the following evening, so we have a little bit of time between then. The party, as all good parties do in the wake of crisis, the party soldiers on. They drum together. It's really wonderful. The party is a rip-roaring success. And that is where we ended the session. Gonna pick up with some heavy shit about to go down over the next day for our sweet Blackwater. Next session happening tomorrow, January 11th, same time, same place. Looking forward to it so much. Love y'all. And is it Saturday yet? Hello everyone, welcome to your episode 62 recap for the Adventures of Blackwater, episode occurring January 11th of 2020. In session or in-game date is the 2nd of Elohim 2376. The day it arrived, session started in the early morning hours or daytime hours, and then ended late night on the same day, potentially in the early morning hours of the 3rd of Elohim. And this session is titled When It Breaks. So I'm going to be doing the recap a little differently from here on out. How I'm going to be structuring it is I'm going to walk you folks through the story of what happened, everything we figured out in game. I'm going to end the recap, and then I'm going to give about a 10-second, 15-second pause. And if you are wanting to listen to any of my sweet fan theories that I have bonking around inside my head, I will be sharing those after the pause. So if you're not someone who wants to hear potential theories, just stop. But if you are someone who wants that or appreciates that, then they will be happening afterward. I'll do my best not to lay them in during the narrative. Yeah. Okay. So we open off with the, it would have been like we rested, or there was late night after the wedding. Nepi casts sending to Temple Philenis to check in after the ill omen that she received during her commune with Nepthys the day before Callie's wedding. Mother Hade says that everyone is safe, and she is surprised that the king, being King Velsum, has left Bakal because he so rarely leaves it. She makes promise to prepare them at Philenis for any anything malevolent happening, and sends her best to Nepi. So we rest for the next day. We wake up in the morning and we discuss some plans to potentially support Kokanee, or maybe we do this before we rest, while he's down at this meeting with Velsum. One of them is we say that we're going to try and get the Kildavin, which is Cork and Gusgus's boat, to sail close by, so we're at least, you know, within dimension door distance of the boat. And so we can kind of he can get out of there, or we can get him out of there as necessary. Okay, so we rest uninterrupted. During the day, Kokanee finds Lex, the artisan who he'd met at the Temple of Arathis. He had previously, she'd made this necklace of cogs as if guided by hands other than her own, and he had changed one for her, and made it more ornate and electroplated it. And he goes into her shop, and she's wearing it. Through their conversation, he asks her to be the curator of the Temple of Arathis, and she is so honored and almost overwhelmed with the prospect of how important this is. But she agrees. He gives her his Bible, the book he's been writing since, oh gosh, since he met Arathis for the first time in Caradoc, which would have been over a year and 2 months ago. Yeah, so the very first time we met Arathis in Caradoc. After that, he started writing his Bible. So he, she says that she would come by the temple in the morning. He says, you know, that's fantastic. We'll see you there. There's definitely like a wistfulness to him, uncertain if he's actually going to be there, but he promises that to her.
We decide to go visit the house of Hector Turnbuckle, who we had known was likely involved in the Order of the Key, and as he had not been at the wedding reception, we didn't have a chance to talk to him, so...
The house is askew, dinner is half eaten, chairs are knocked over, and there's a puddle of burned down wax, as if he had gone missing likely potentially the night before, or if not sooner than that. There's some scrape marks on the ground. The window is broken from the outside in. Gus takes a look around and finds locks for a secret room in the pantry that is opened via a biscuit box. They find a chamber under the stairs that is trapped. They call for Hector. He's not there. They go back to the group and ask for help. Neppy goes to the house, or I'm assuming most of the group does. Some of the group does. And she casts Locate Creature, trying to find Hector, and cannot find him. Spooky dispels the trap on the pantry, like the hidden room. Finds a writing desk, which is also trapped. Neppy and Spooky are trying to be conservative with their magic, and even knowing that this could be very bad for Hector, along the lines of like, well, if he could be dead anyway, which is so hard. And Neppy offers to cast Sending and to him to try and check in with Hector, but says no, save your magic. And Neppy promises to cast Sending the next morning after the meeting with Kokanee. The next is bouncing around. Finnan seeks audience with Kamea, and Callie is with her. They're at the Gatestone Keep. Finnan asks to be in the Coronation Guard as extra protection for Kamea. Kamea agrees and thanks him, letting him know that there's a lot of people there, and Callie will be there too. But Finnan says, like, I would really like to help. This would be important to me. He talks with Callie as well and congratulates her and lets her know that he's got her back. Kokanee also finds Spooky. Spooky takes him to their tree house, which is a no gravel boys only zone. So it's pretty much just Callie and Spooky's tree house. Spooky says Arathis is pretty cool, and that Garl, Glittergold, the god of gnomes and halflings, sucks. Kokanee gives her a cog, and they talk about kind of Spooky, wanting to have some higher calling, potentially, not necessarily becoming the most devout, but at least have something, as she kind of sees that a lot of the party does follow somebody, and she's feeling like she wants to do that as well. Kokanee gives her a cog. It's a really lovely moment between the two of them, and Spooky asks if Kokanee is okay. Kokanee thinks for a moment, and he says, I've spent a long time running, and I don't want to run anymore. They realize that they should probably tell Callie about what happened with Velsume the previous night, because she doesn't know. So they use Sending to get her to come to the treehouse, and she does. Callie didn't realize what had happened. And Kokanee, oh, I'm sorry, I had to sneeze. Sorry. Callie didn't realize what had happened. She respects that Kokanee wants to go alone, and Kokanee knows that he has to go. So they have this discussion, and he leaves eventually, and then the two of them kind of have some time in the treehouse just to kind of touch base and reconnect after Callie's wedding. After this, Kokanee finds Neppy. She's likely in their room doing some lots of praying, as is common for her. So they have a discussion, and Neppy asks Kokanee what she would call him in her history books. The priestesses of her order write down, journal and like write down everything about their lives that will go back in the Philenis archives when she returns. She has stacks and stacks of these books of things written down about her life. And she asks what to call him in her books, if she, you know, what his name will be in the pantheons of history about him and their religion. And he says that one day he wants a new name, not Buckwild, something new that is not linked to his father and his past. She talks about how important it is that, you know, when they do go to Philenis, she can introduce him as someone who is as important as he is, not only just to her, but to the whole religion, his whole religion. Nepi the other priestesses of her order are always quite respectful of other people's religions. So she's wanting to make sure that he gets the deference that he deserves. He says he'll think about it. And she pauses for a moment, and then she says, you know, while what was going on, the ceremony with Kali and Kamea is not not how the two of them kind of function, the kind of bigness and grandeur of it. She asks him to marry her. He says an emphatic yes, and that he would love to. She gives him one of the many kind of gold rings on her finger, and he gives her this dragon pendant that he got from a time at Adonis. It's gaudy and awful, and he says, you know, I'd like to get you something better, something more. And she says it's perfect. It's exactly what it should be. So they kind of have a lovely moment for the two of them before everything is supposed to go down that evening with Kokanei's meeting. So before the meeting, later on in the evening, we go downstairs. Finan casts Gaze of the Two Minds on Kokanei so that he'll be able to see through Kokanei's eyes. There's some jokes thrown around that, like, we're going to have to get all of the walls of the keep, like, extra thickened because of the fact that Finan can see through walls. So that he can see through Kokanei's eyes when he's in the meeting and keep the group up to date on what's happening. Nepi takes Kokanei's candle with her. And he leaves everything basically at the house. He leaves his gun and all of his bags. He leaves his sword there. He has on his cape the mountebank, though. Nepi carries his shield, and Nepi also takes the Chaos Talisman, the amulet, from him. So we walk down to the docks, and there's a separation of the delegation's vessels from the merchant ships. So the Golden Dawn, this big ornate ship that is the ship that we assume Volsum is on, is harbored out. So he is, we board the Kildavin, and we kind of sail off a little bit down the harbor, and Kokanei heads down to the end of the wharf and is rowed out. About halfway out, his hand is gripped on his shoulder by the person rowing him, and he is transported into this small cabin of a ship. It's illuminated by candlelight. Finan is filling the entire group in on everything. The cabin is beautifully ornate. There's 2 table settings, a bottle of wine. Volsum sits across from him, or at the table, in these like almost simple but just exquisite embroidered black robes with gold and of symbols, kind of symbology, looking, you know, regal and crappy, wearing the large black amulet that we had seen on him the night before. Kokanei's father steps out of the darkness kind of behind. He's got a bit longer hair, this salt and pepper mustache, a real like Brad Pitt vibe, and he's very muscular, almost if like Kokanei was older, longer hair, and more fighter-ish. And he carries a long rapier, black looks reminiscent of Kokanei's, but just darker and more dangerous. He puts his hand on Kokanei's shoulder from behind and says, "Hello, son," and he dispels the death ward that Nepi had placed on him. Kokanei up to this point had had death ward on him the entire time, and with just a single touch, Kokanei's father could dispel it. Kokanei, they trade a couple of repartees about the slave trade, and Kokanei sasses him about, it's like, well, you've ended slavery. I guess that means I'm free. Velsoum offers him a glass of wine. He takes it, makes motion to cheers, but doesn't drink it. And, Velsoum comments that he's not drinking, and, said Kokanei's like, well, I gave that up a long time ago. Velsoum remarks that he's been busy. And though he hasn't sent a lot back to them, he's like, what he has sent has been most rare. He had heard that a while back, probably, 2 years ago, this was before he was with Blackwater, there was an attempt on his life via an assassin. And, Kokanei agrees that did happen. And Velsoum asks him if he knows anything about the Order of the Key. Kokanei denies any knowledge. Obviously, that's not true. He knows about the Order of the Key but Kokanei denies it. And he says that the Order was the one who assigned the assassination of Kokanei, or the attempt, at least. And Velsoum wants to make sure that the Order is dispatched, because they're getting in the way. And he discovered that the Order extends here to Wulfrene. He thought it was just in the Amonkhet, but, where he had been, but it had extended all the way up to Wulfrene, and they bring out Hector, who had ordered the assassination against Kokanei. Velsoum wants Kokanei to kill him, or offers him at least the opportunity to have his revenge. Kokanei declines and says that he won't do it, and that he's basically he says to Velsoum, you either kill me or you let me go. Well, he doesn't actually say that yet, but in any case, he says he's not going to kill Hector. Alamir, then his father, comes up and with 4 quick attacks, stabs Hector and kills him. It's an awful moment. Kokanei tells them of their cruelty and how they had kept him so alone his entire life, so isolated. And he says that he's not alone anymore. This is when, Velsoum is like, but you're our family. You're part of this family. And Kokanei then gives him the ultimatum, either kill me or let me go. Velsoum talks that he was hoping to bring good news, that slavery is over, but that Kokanei's heart belongs to him. And so he extends a hand, and in what isn't necessarily like a physical movement but seems that that Kokanei's heart is somehow gone from his chest. Finan relays the entire thing, and Kokanei's candle begins to flicker. His heart is removed from his chest, and as he begins to fall, and this like blackness falling around him, Kokanei feels it's almost as if his body is caught. This unfathomably cold sensation takes him, and there's this stillness and then nothingness, like some part of him is still held together in stasis, even though his heart is gone from his chest. Nepi, hearing all this from Finan, says we have to go now. We do this right now. And when that happens, we rush to the deck of the ship, and Nepi casts locate object. We go and we see that the ship, the Golden Dawn, is like actually not there. It's like it's just gone. And so we see it moving. So Nepi casts locate object on Kokanei because he's essentially a body at this point. So he's not a person, so he's an object. And we find that he's hitting the water and starting to sink down. Callie, Nepi strips off of her armor Callie and takes a Caraxian breathing mask from her bag, placing it on, leaving her bag on the deck with the last Caraxian breathing mask. Spooky turns into a dolphin, and starts swimming out towards the spot where, towards now. Callie picks up Neppy and they just start flying in the direction that Neppy is directing her. While this is happening on the deck of the Kildavin, there we hear this like huge crack of lightning, and as we turn around or look up towards where that is, Callie, Neppy flying, everyone on the Kildavin, Spooky in the water, everyone on the deck of the Kildavin behind them, there is a crack of lightning hits this bright yellow, the sickly same yellow as the magic that we know to be associated with the Chained Oblivion, the same color as the magic associated with Spooky's pants, happens and flashes down in front of the Gatestone Keep in the center of Wolfthreen. Callie and Neppy share a moment where Neppy just says, "Drop me, I'll go." So Callie flies and she drops Neppy into the water and she takes off towards the Gatestone Keep. The Bakal ships at this point are leaving. The entire fleet is heading back out to sea. Finnan and Tend try to prior when the second that like Alamir Kokanee hits the water, tries to dimension door into the ship, the Golden Dawn to get Hector, and he falls through swimming in the water. The Golden Dawn, the ship was an illusion the whole time, and they were never on that ship. So once makes his way back to the ship, Finnan they visualize the cabin that Hector's body was in, and lying there on the floor, and through some maneuvering of magic and some pretty lucky rolls, I think they managed to get there into the cabin. Hector is not there. Alamir attacks Finnan immediately with 4 huge attacks from his rapier and pushes him back 30 feet onto the deck as Finnan holds onto. The second they can, they dimension door out and get back onto the deck of the Kildavin. Meanwhile, Spooky's kind of coming up behind her, but where Neppy is, and Neppy is just, the second she hits the water, she is just swimming immediately down, having locate object still up, and diving down as far as she can. She dives about 300 feet underwater, seeing this blue glow of where Kokanee's body is. She doesn't see Hector, or no, she's not looking for Hector at that point. She's looking for Kokanee, so she grabs onto his body and activates the ring of water walking, which immediately pulls the two of them to the surface. They make it up, and she basically stands up on top of the water and carries him towards the Kildavin. And the bugbears that are on the deck of the Kildavin, Chewie and Durad, help pull them up. Finnan at this point they're back on the ship, and with Spooky as help as a dolphin, they dive down to find Hector, because Spooky couldn't find him the first time with her inability to see, and just couldn't figure it out to where he was, couldn't see him. Finnan with his dark vision is able to, with the Caraxian breathing mask, dive all the way down and get Hector. So they come back up on the body. They go up onto the boat. Kokanee's metal plate in his chest is there's this blue shimmer around him, and his body is stiff. Nepenthe takes a moment and thinks, and she remembers what this state is. It's almost a stasis. When she first found Tauren, something very similar. So she prays to Nepthysicet in that moment, and Nepthysicet says his fate is not in my hands. So she thinks. She asks Spooky, being closer to Arathis than she is, with her assistance, to reach out to Arathis and ask her for assistance and guidance, and asking for his choice, if he could come back to us before she performs any type of magic to bring him back. Spooky feels a warmth in her necklace and feels the warmth radiate down through her. Nepenthe and Spooky see the brass plate that is now in Kokanei's chest, which seems to have replaced the adamantium plate from before. That there is moving cogs on the plate that covers where his heart used to be. And this, just as we had to warm Torin, we now have to use what is appropriate to revive Kokanei. In Nepi's memory of, knowing what's happened in Kokanei's history. When Arathis first met Kokanei, she, saw the plate and knew what it was. She couldn't fix it, but she gave him a boon and told him that she would do her best and do everything she could to keep him safe, give her what she can, some protection. So this was Arathis immediately in the moment before Kokanei died, intervening, and though he's a second, or he is either dead or like a second away from dead, mostly dead if we're going by Princess Bride rules, she did everything she could to keep him as close to alive as possible. So we're still trying to figure out what to do with Kokanei. As Callie, as all of this is happening, Callie is flying towards the Gatestone Keep and get them to turn the boat around and head to the harbor. As Callie flies up to the Gatestone Keep, she hears this massive guttural roar, and she doesn't see where it's coming from, but she flies on. Back on the deck of the Kildab, Nepenthe casts sending to Nissa, asking her to meet them at the temple. Nissa sends back that the Gatestone has been destroyed. Not the keep, but the monument out front has been destroyed. Nissa said that she saw his body in her workshop, and she said, take them to her workshop, or take him to her workshop. So Nepi hears this inside her head. As this is going, Callie finally approaches the Gatestone Keep, and there are scorch marks in the shape of the spiral outside the keep where the monument used to be. Almost this dimensional rift has opened, a crack in reality of this plane, and through it has climbed this giant, or what we assume has climbed this giant beast, or has created this beast, what we know is a Garistro. We don't know that, but this is what it is. It's a beast called the Garistro. So at this point, Callie's the one who arrives first. She gets into battle a full couple rounds before everyone else does. Finn, Spooky, and Letters go they run towards the Gatestone Keep. Nepi says that Nepi stays on the deck of the Kildavin with Kokanei and Hector to look after them. They just fucking go towards the Gatestone Keep as fast as they can. Callie's first in battle. She clocks the Garistro with 2 huge strikes, but it smokes her back, doing quite a number on her. And then in that moment, Callie hears the screech of an owlbear with Kamea running in battle. Clack runs in the second that Callie gets smoked and says, "Get your hand off my friend!" and casts Wand of Wonder at the Garistro. And so the only thing around is that he gets it's the thing where something disappears into the ethereal plane and it's just a boulder. But Clack is there and he's kicking ass. Of course he is, with his Wand of Wonder. Kamea runs in next, missing with 2 of her owlbear strikes. And these 2 abyssal centaur type creatures come in, just making their way through the guards. They're called Armanites, I believe, but they are like centaur type creatures, but definitely with a more demonic flavor to them. Clack gets impaled by the Garistro at this point and is unconscious. Everyone else arrives. So an important point about Letters at this point, for most of the day, Letters' Numbers had been too drunk to do anything, which is what he had said, so he was sleeping for most of the day. But while and had, woken up and still in his fugue state, being pretty quiet with everything that was going on. And then they, ran up to battle together. And the second he watched as Clack was impaled, snaps out of it and turns into Letters, going first up in the fight, and activates Tenser's transformation and just starts wailing on the Garistro. Callie cure wounds, which brings Clack back up, attacks the centaur-like creature, doing some big damage. Finnan smokes like 3 of the centaurs with his attacks and like does some big damage, and then in the moment casts his phantom steed, Shadowfax, spelled F-A-C-T-S, and sends the horse towards Neppy down on the docks. The Garistro hits Letters, but it's not a big deal. He's had a bunch of temporary hit points from the Tenser's transformation, so he's doing okay. Clack hits the Garistro, stands up, after being just almost dead, and hits the Garistro with the Wand of Wonder, hitting it with a lightning bolt. It doesn't do as much damage as he, would have liked it to done or had anticipated it doing, but still laying in a lick on the Garistro. Spooky casts Chain Lightning. And just as one of the Armanites is about to come and wail on Kamea, Neva smokes it with a crossbow bolt in the back of the throat. Yeah, so then the Garistro is still up. The Armanites are done. And Letters smokes the Garistro twice and just definitely is looking rough at this point, and then and just picks up a rock, or one of these giant boulders, just stands up and just crushes the head of the Garistro into the ground. As the Garistro falls down, Clack has to roll out of the way to avoid being crushed. The other creatures scatter, and they finally are able to see this tear, this scar in the earth. Looking down, it's almost like a rift that goes down into a chasm, and creatures begin climbing out of it, and they start trying to move some of these boulders to cover this rift, if at all possible. Callie goes over to Kamea, healing her with her lay on hands, and that is where we ended session. So we're going to pick up next week, happening Saturday, which would be January 18th. And so now I'm going to pause, and then we're going to talk some fan theories. So I'll give you guys a moment here to turn off. Love y'all, and is it Saturday yet? Okay, that was 10 seconds. I feel like that's enough. And we're back. Wow, wow, wow. I have so many questions about what has happened in this episode. Okay, so that amulet that's sitting around its neck, Velsum's neck, that's obviously an amulet of anti-magic or true sight, so that he could see through the seeming, right? He could see through the seeming that Finnan had cast on Kokanee at the wedding. But my question is, okay, it's very clear that Velsum, based on what we know from the adventures in Amonkhet, is recollecting items. So we saw Malsav Bakal, who I'm pretty sure is Velsum, and hence my theory about him being a 2,300-year-old lich, is recollecting items that he had with him on that day. Almost like they're Horcruxes, right? He's put parts of himself, or he's spread the power so that he can get them back and, regain this true form or help. He's aligned with the Chained Oblivion. And my sense is that Kokanee's heart was one of these Horcruxes, essentially. So the other Horcruxes to note: the Moon Scepter, which Kokanee sent back on our very, very, very first episode. The amulet that he wears around his neck. The Spooky's pants, which are called Dela's Betrayal, Dela being the name of the princess who was sacrificed or essentially killed herself in order to bring Malsav power. And I think Kokanee's heart was one of them too. So when Kokanee's heart was ripped from his chest, I think Velsum had enough power to start opening seals. He's starting to unseal the seals that keep the Chained Oblivion locked away. So I can only assume, well, I have other information, but based on what we know, that the Gatestone itself, the monument on front of the Gatestone Keep, must have been a seal. It had to have been, meaning there was a seal here in Wulfrene. So I'm assuming there are other seals around, but we're going to have to figure out where those are and to make sure that those don't get opened, because I think that's what Volsum is trying to do. He's trying to unlock all of these seals to bring back Tharizdun, the Chained Oblivion, or allow the like hunger and madness and the just utter destruction of Volsum creep into the world. And like that's obviously so problematic. But this isn't the first time. This isn't the first time that Tharizdun has tried to creep back into the world. There's like in Nepi's, and I know this because I wrote Nepi's history, but like at 3 different points throughout Nepi's history, priestesses in her order have come in contact with the Chained Oblivion. The very first priestess, Yoravine, has, quelled an uprising of the Chained Oblivion. One of the priestesses was corrupted by the Chained Oblivion and was like, tried to go back to Philenis and corrupt the temple and convert it over towards Tharizdun. But some of the other priestesses found out, and the Mother Superior and the Appointed Hand, which is like the second in command, killed that priestess by chaining her to her bed and like murder and knife to her heart in her sleep. And then the priestess immediately following that one, so the priestess that got murdered in her sleep was named Grixori, and the priestess after that was sent to go seek out the remains of the Hand of Io, that thing that we delivered to Malsav Bakal in the Adventures in Amonkhet. And so he broke it, which was one of the seals, obviously, and like that's what started allowing the Chained Oblivion back into the world. So she was sent to try and go find the pieces because she thought that the pieces were there, and she was never heard from again. She was just gone. She just like was gone for like, just nobody's heard from her. And so like, fuck, man, like what if Zesperia was converted towards the Chained Oblivion? Like what if she found the pieces of the scepter, like the Hand of Io, and some bad shit went down? Like what if she's the fucking priestess that's been bringing Kokani back over and over again, a 500-year-old grave cleric, like working for a 2,300-year-old, like almost a lich. I'm not 100% sure that Volsum is a wizard. I mean, he's on his way to lichdom, or I'm not sure. My sense is he might be a warlock, but like, I don't know. But like, dang, dude. Man, this is so intense. There's so much stuff happening. And then like, my next question is like, what are we going to have to do to get Kokani's heart back? Or can we get it back? Or do we have to, is Arathis, has she started building him a new one? Are we going to have to go to see Arathis to go do that? There's a list of instructions and list of things that like Kokani and Nepi would have talked about before, in the eventuality that he died, because they knew that was a possibility. So like Nepi knows what she needs to do, but like we have to bring him back. But how? Man, this is like some good D&D, you guys. This is some really good D&D. I am so looking forward to next session. There is like, I'm really hoping it like illuminates a lot of stuff and answers a lot of these questions that I have, because I love my fan theories. Okay, so that's done. I'm done flipping out about that stuff. Can't wait to see y'all on Saturday. Talk to you soon. Bye. Hello everyone, welcome to your episode 63 recap for the Adventures of Blackwater session happening January 18th, 2020. Sorry for the late recap, it has been a busy week. In-game date is the 2nd of Elomin, the evening continuing on after Kokani's meeting with Volsum, and I believe that this continues into the late evening and early morning hours. Title of this episode called The Threads Converge. Okay, so we start off shifting back to Nepi as we see what she's doing while everyone else has gone off to the Gatestone Keep to fight whatever has come out of the rift to Gristro. So she sits there with Hector and Kokani, and she turns to Hector first and cleans him and prepares him, and then, casts gentle repose on the both of them. It works for Hector, but not for Kokani. So kind of furthering that proof or that evidence that he's not necessarily dead. He's more in stasis, as we had thought. So she turns to Kokanee and says that she's proud of him for what he's done, and that she's coming to find him, and that she will do everything she can to bring him back and keep the light for him. She takes the Chaos Talisman, and she starts, she's going to kind of wait to start that process to attuning to it. She turns to Chewie and Durad, who are the two bugbears who are captaining or are running Quark and Gus Gus's ship at the moment, and gives them like 50 gold or something, and just tells them that they need to wait, that this is their kind of new contract, and that, you know, if they need anything, to go to the Blackwater Keep and let them know that Neppy sent them, and to just so that they can feed themselves and the crew in the city. Whether they do that or not, she doesn't really care in that moment, but keeping them loyal was important, and make sure they didn't leave with the boat. So she, the Shadowfax arrives. She places Hector and Kokanee very gently in the bag, and she rides as fast as she can to Blackwater Keep. She checks on Jar. Everyone is safe. She gives her instructions to Orly, Kotis, and Resia. Kreger and Gorge agree to help keep folks safe as needed in either the dojo or their kind of cellar, or the Blackwater Tavern, whatever they think is best. She then heads up to her and Kokanee's room, and she gets his gun. She takes everything that is on the desk that's there, including a book from Torin. She finds his bag. She attaches her sword to him herself. She searches the bag for the letter that she knows he wrote, gets his kit, and she reads the letter, and then puts it back in the bag. Doesn't take a look really any further, just knowing that everything that she needs of his is there, everything that he would have told her to bring. She casts Sending to Lex and asks where she is and that she needs her help, because she knows Lex has Kokanee's Bible. So she rides to Lex's shop and picks her up. As she does, she kind of rides through, you know, patrols and soldiers dead, as well as like seeing, you know, these soldiers fighting off demons, these small like rogue demons that are kind of going throughout the city. She hears like the roar of the Garistro, and she keeps riding. So she goes to Lex, and she goes to her shop, and she notices on the way over, there's this large black owl that's flying, and the owl is flying kind of behind her, and she clocks it, and then it continues westward as she's going southward. She has a strong inclination to follow it. It's a huge owl, a large wingspan, probably about 4 feet, but she keeps on. We get to Lex's shop, and Neppy asks her to come and to help them with Kokanee, that Kokanee would have wanted her to be there, bringing the Bible. She comes out wearing this kind of ornate but heirloom looking armor, and carries a war pick, which is a long instrument with a curved hook on one side and then a hammer end on the other. Kind of a nasty looking thing, but looks really, really cool. This kind of golden, beautiful breastplate. And then out of the shop comes this kind of construct that, you know, walks out on 4 legs of a mastiff, a large dog named Otis. So Neppy and Otis runs alongside the horse, and she and Neppy ride as fast as they can to the Gatestone Keep. When they get there, the Garisto has just finished being bludgeoned by the animate object rubble that animated, and Finnan just runs to go chase down some rogue demons throughout the city. Nyssa runs up and uses every all of her energy to cast this wall of force over top of the rift, forcing everything back down. We see demons and terrible, terrible looking creatures come up and try and get through the wall, but it's not happening. A small group of paladins arrive, kind of light billows around them. They're white robed or in white and gold, and they are paladins of Pelor. And a white robed figure steps out. We know this to be, this is by esteem and by acclaim, Sunspeaker Ogren Halskani, a human cleric of Pelor, and he starts. Nepi recognizes the spell instantly. He's beginning to hallow the ground and start to close the rift. Over the next 24 hours, he'll be doing that with acolytes and other high priests and important figures kind of standing around waiting to go in this moment. Light billows around the paladins, the staff slams down, and they're doing everything they can to close the rift. We group. Never arrives and chides Kamea for running off to help with the fight. Spooky and Letters kind of come up and start giving their aid to Nissa, kind of helping channel some of their arcane focus into Nissa so she can maintain the rift. Callie, once Clack has kind of come to his senses, says to her, she says to him, "Thank you so much for everything you did. I appreciate your help." And we introduce everyone to Lex, and we start discussing the seals, and Nepi asks if there's seals across the world and how they're hidden throughout the continent, and that Hector might have been a guardian. We discuss a bit about Tharazdun, kind of now that these seals have been opened, remembering that there are 3 of them that have been opened now. That is kind of this like subtle leaching of chaos into the world, problems out there. Finnan noticed in his travels that folks were more aggressive, hearing that these cities had used to have been so peaceful. The cities of origin are listed, knowing that there are seals in a couple different places. Let me just flip back in my notes here to figure out where we are. There was one in Wolfreen, which is the Gatestone, which has been destroyed. The Hand of Io, which was destroyed in the ruined cities of Amonkhet, which was likely one of the things that kicked off the Dawn War. There's one in Clore. There's one in Silderfall. There was one in the small village of Tor En. We're not sure what that one was, but that one might have been destroyed as well. There's one in Caradoc, and there's one somewhere in the Islands of the Forgotten Expanse. So yeah, so we talk about this a little bit more here, and let me flip back here. Sorry, flipping back to my notes. Okay, so we discuss kind of the logistics of Hector and Kokanee and plane shifting and how we know we can bring Hector back, but Nepi doesn't have enough diamonds for both, so we try and figure out the order of which to do things, and Nepi says that she won't. She needs, another 100 gold piece of diamonds because we need to make sure that they've got enough gold diamonds for both of them. Goes up to Kamea and asks her for diamonds as they're going back to inside the Gatestone Keep, and Kamea gives Gus a necklace and an earring, the matching earring of the set that Spooky and Letters had asked her from before that they had given to Latour. And then Callie and Kamea go and have sex, and that's great for them. So we return back down to the square where the paladins of Pelor have now, kind of encircled Sunspeaker Oghren, Halskani, and have also the acolytes that Nissa teaches in the Thexan Academy. No, the Thexan's not in this city. Sorry, the acolytes that Nissa's been teaching have encircled her and in a defensive stance, protecting her at all costs, and she's holding strong. So we kind of get back down there, and then in this moment of kind of peacefulness, while we're just waiting, we start the ritual to raise Hector now that we have enough diamonds. Asks him to come back to help protect the seals, and Nepi calls to her goddess, asking Nepthisiket to grant Hector safe passage back, because the fate of the world may lie within some of the knowledge that he has, and her history and destiny is entwined with some of that knowledge. So she needs him, and she needs him to come do his duty, because his story isn't done yet. So the ritual succeeds. We speak to Hector in those moments and give him some healing so he's a bit more coherent. He was the prime guardian of Wolfreen. Somehow Velsum found out, kidnapped and tortured him, and Velsum extracted the information. Hector starts getting down on himself, and he laments that he's failed. Velsum knew Hector was in the Order, and Hector does admit to trying to have Kokanee killed, that he knew where Kokanee was from and who he worked for. And he very strongly believes that Velsum is tied to the Chained Oblivion. Nepi talks a bit about the past and the priestesses in her history and what has happened, especially regarding the Hand of Io, that the priestess that she, that directly preceded her, went looking for the remains and never returned. So we discuss a bit. Finnan posits a theory that Kokanee might have been sent actually to look for some of the seals, considering they might be objects or things. So we think back to kind of what's happened in Kokanee's history with ties to the when there might have been chaos, and we think about the staff of the moon that he sent back in Toren, and then this wall of water, the calamity in Sil-En that occurred not long after it, maybe a day or so after it. The Gatestone Monument Keep was destroyed after Kokanee's heart was pulled or teleported from his chest, and then the Hand of Io, destroyed in the Amonkhet, kicked off the Dawn War. So the Order's goals, in essence, were to keep a distance from the seal, help the seal blend in, and keep it safe. So, Hector, we thank Hector for his information and plead him to go rest and to take care of himself, and that we will return. And, Nepi says, okay, we have to go to Arathis now. That's where she needs me to take him to her. So Lex fixes the dog, and we give, Callie and Kamea, we give Kamea the other sending stone, taking it back from Cork, and Callie keeps it to, keep contact with Kamea, who will be crowned queen tomorrow. And, we say hopefully that we can come back to see it. They say that the coronation is going to be small, but it has to happen for the sake of Wulfrene. Spooky tells Clack that she's proud of him, and it's a beautiful moment, and I don't think Clack will ever recover from that. So as they about to go to plane shift, they join hands, and Nepi asks for a little bit of decorum because we are going to be around a goddess. We plane shift immediately to the elemental plane of ice, to Arathis' workshop, where we had gone before, and we land in an unfamiliar place, a hall, now made mostly out of metal. There's windows of frosted glass, and there's a gate ahead, 2 doors, and there's this sense of deja vu that we've seen the gate, and Nepi's seen the gate before when she reached out to speak with Toren during the night of requesting that had happened 5 months previous during her holy month. The gate opens, and this golden light emanates from it, with a large female figure stepping forward, long hair braided, wearing glasses with many lenses, and her dog. She's wearing this beautiful ornate armor that's been carved, and it almost looks like it's moving and shifting around her. And this is Arathis as in her much more exalted form, in a much more exalted location. This place was, the plane was not as she left it. She's been doing her work. So she is ascending, and this is to be her home, and that it is very soon that we will not be able to access this plane. It will be sealed off. It will be by mere mortals. She asks for Kokanee, and it seems that Arathis has grown. She feels, she says that she feels more herself, more, present in the world, but she's not yet fully herself. She takes Kokanee's body and gently kind of floats it out of the bag of holding. She tells us she needs Cogman. She tells us we need to go to Caradoc, and that she will meet us in the temple in Caradoc once we have him. She doesn't say much else, and we thank her graciously and leave Kokanee in her stead. Nepi keeps all of his belongings and puts them in her bag. So we're teleported immediately by Arathis to Caradoc, and we see we're in the temple. There's these 40 to 50 high elves that are there, and it's the new temple that's been built in Caradoc, and we're inside it. The door has been barricaded from the inside. This temple's been built at the base of the Mother's Eye, so this ice cavern that had covered Caradoc has melted, and the rift of the ice plane had been kind of sealed after the White Dragon died, the son of Garrux died, and this bubble that was kind of, encasing Caradoc under ice is now melting, and it is now exposed out to the elements. There are these, we see brass everywhere that has started to oxidize, and it's like blues and greens, and it's just gorgeous. We see this elven woman come up to us, short cropped hair, kind of a claw mark across her face, and they're holding Caraxian spears, and we tell them, we're here to find Cogman. We've been sent by Arathis, and they tell us that we need to go to the armory. We push through the doors, and we take a peek at the door, and we see these small fires, and there's this cacophony of sound. We see this long promenade and kind of recognize it because we've been here before. We know generally where we're going. It's about a 10-minute walk from the 15-minute walk, or a 10-minute kind of brisk jog if we go from the temple to the armory. And we recognize the path. We make a plan to split up with and Finnan sneaking away to find Cogman, and the rest are, planning to draw the others away. We see this flying creature starts looking for the path of least resistance, because there's activity on the direct road that leads to the armory. There's this flying creature that's taking surveillance. Sees two Garistro kind of fighting over the corpse of an elf further down, and they get closer to the armory by jumping over buildings, and they see this large black winged demon that is just screeching, and there's small wraiths kind of circling around trying to get into the armory, and this black creature is holding Cogman's arm. Finnan posits that maybe that Arathis will put Cogman's heart in Kokonie's chest. An interesting thought. So we're able to a couple of the wraiths kind of float away and go off to go do something else, but then there's two wraiths still surrounding the armory, with really effective use of a fog cloud and just timing it right. They get off the building, and then they do the thing to get in, and they barricade, and then by use of Finnan looks through the inside. The door's been reinforced. There's 3 figures huddling inside: a bronze dragonborn, 2 elves, and then a construct sitting with one arm, which we know to be Cogman. So we Finnan and make use of a minor illusion and a silent image to get them to open the door. And there's a bunch of Warforged inside as well, and weapons. And I think they have Nepi's bag at this point, yeah. So they go inside. Cogman agrees to come, and he takes this special gun, the Lawbringer. And there's also a Warhammer with its head being a gear. And Cogman has this little clockwork fey fly that can cast fairy fire, which is pretty rad. And they start sneaking their way back through the alley and back to the temple. Oh, and fun fact, that Dragonborn is Soren Brightwing, one of the Dragonborn who was originally sent to investigate the Mother's Eye that we met in Faway Tavar many, many moons ago. Very cool callback. So the rest of us are doing our best to kind of draw away the attention from the armory. We head down the road, we see the 2 Garistro fighting, and then manage to kind of swoop around. On the left, we see, 4 Warforged get attacked and possessed by these wraiths with this yellow, kind of sickly energy in their eyes. And then above us, we see this winged creature comes at us, and these 2 goat-like creatures that notices us and starts crawling down the alley towards us, with the wraiths peeling off down the road. And that is where we ended it. Next session is this evening, normal time, normal place. Very, very exciting. Thank you so much, folks, and stick around if you want to hear some of my sweet theories. I don't have too many this time, but it's mostly just going to be me kind of riffing on what's going on. Love y'all, and chat to you soon. Okay, that's been 10 seconds. That's enough. Wow, guys, what an intense session. It's pretty crazy what's happening, and all of these threads kind of converging. I'm like really unsure of like what the seals are at this point. Like we know the Hand of Io was a seal. We know the Gatestone Monument was a seal. And I'm wondering if the seal that was in Torren, based on kind of what the group has been talking about, was that, Staff of the Moon that Varys, I believe the druid, had, that Kokonie sent back kind of right at the beginning. And then we're kind of wondering, based on what Kokonie has sent back, what are some of these seals? So I don't think he sent back anything other than that could have been a seal. There was like the Aarakocra skeleton, the trident that was Delnus's trident that worshipped Istishia. I don't think that's a seal. That's kind of during the Dawn War. So, but these seals were around the Dawn War. Yeah, it's super intense. So there is a seal here in Caradoc. So my sense is that once we bring Kokonie back, which I hope we will be able to do this episode, that we'll be able to go and find the seal, figure out what it is. Maybe that's why these demons are here, and fight for it. Because whatever one we decide to go after next, Clore, Cinderfall, or the Forgotten Expanse, we know that Velsum is going to be going for one of those other ones next, and then it's going to be the fight for the last one. My sense is that all 7 seals will have to fall for the Chained Oblivion to return, and then it's a completely different ball game. Very, very intense. I'm hoping that we get a bit more information, maybe from Arathis and what she knows, because she was around, if she's willing to tell us this kind of stuff. I'm also curious as to like if Kokonie's had any visions while he's been out, or what's been happening, or if he's just been in stasis, and stuff like that, and what's going to happen. Like, how are we going to fix him? He's missing a heart, and how are we going to get, some semblance of a working heart back for him? More questions. I don't have a lot of answers or theories today, but yeah, so good. Such good D&D. I'm loving Lex. She's a fantastic character. I hope we get to meet more of her through this episode and throughout the kind of later episodes when she, goes back to being an NPC. So thanks so much for listening to my ramblings. Love you guys, and see you tonight. Hello, everyone. Welcome to your episode 64 recap for the Adventures of Blackwater. Session date happening yesterday. I believe that was January 26th of 2020. In-game date still very, very late night of the 2nd of Elamine into early morning into the 3rd of Elamine. So we're gonna have to get a confirmation with Tim on what time it is and where we're at. So maybe we can make it back for the coronation of Kamea. But the title of this episode is called Rescue and Revival. So we open in a fight with half of the party in a conflict with this large black winged demon creature with its almost bird-like in its stature, with long legs and talons and a tail and huge wings, and telepathically it speaks into our head in this, screechy, awful voice, what are you doing here? So shit pops off, letters off the top, Spooky, Neppy, Lex, the demon itself, and then Callie. There's a couple really amazing moments in the fight. One where Letters casts Misty Step after he's grappled by the demon, and Misty Steps, and after Lex casts Enlarge on him, so Letters is 2,000 pounds and just 12 feet across, a true beefy boy. Misty Steps about 20 feet above the demon and drops down onto it, knocking it prone. The demon casts Circle of Death and Letters counterspells. Letters coming up huge in this fight, doing some amazing grapples. Spooky's magic is actually quite similar to the magic being cast by this demon, so that's kind of setting, it's a bit uncomfortable, and then the demon itself recognizes that Spooky's magic is similar. Neppy playing more of a support role in this, keeping everyone alive, healing Callie up back to her full health before Callie the whole game plan being to try and get this creature on the ground after it was flying up in the air, and it seemed to a couple times pick, people up and try and take off with us, but, we managed to get out of them. There was one time it picked up Neppy and she used Anti-Lav Shell to basically push the creature away from her, managing to drop the grapple. It flies 70 feet up at the, after we get a couple hits on it, and it, gets a couple swipes at us and says, oh, they will take care of you. It disappears. We think because he's a chicken shit and he's scared of us. So then a Garistro arrives and we hear these cackles and noise. I wish Tim was here sitting with me so that he could do it. Arrives in the distance, and Spooky banishes the Garistro, and so we surround Spooky in attempts to keep her safe from getting hit, so that she can concentrate on keeping the Garistro banished. These kind of 4 abyssal goat-like creatures show up, and Callie manages to cut through 2 of them super easily, and then Neppy's using her anti-life shell to block off one of the pathways, and then this goat thing leaps over top of her, gets a couple hits in on Spooky, breaks the concentration, and the Garistro comes back and starts to it starts slamming against the wall. Letters kills the last goat, and Lex finishes one off, and then we have 4 Neppy blinds the Garistro by casting darkness on its bracers, which are up near its face, so it can't see us to hit us, but we can still hit its feet. Callie getting in some amazing swipes down near the ankle. We cut then to who is near the temple. They are running back, Cogman's there with Soren and Finan, and they see this kind of goat demon creature kind of come up to them, this like noise. I can't stop laughing every time I do it. And Cogman fires 2 shots with his gun, the Lawbringer, and he kills this goat demon in like no problem. So they make it to the temple. Soren, Brightwing, the Dragonborn, and Finan keep guard outside. They see inside the temple, as they had seen it before, there's this metal plate that was sealing up this arcane gate that had originally led to the plane of ice that had encroached on Caradoc, that had, kept it surrounded in ice, and then that was what was keeping Arathis stuck on the plane of ice. Helps Cogman over to the seal, and the center of Cogman's chest opens up, and it's this like beautiful clockwork mechanical inner workings, and the shard emerges from his chest, glowing this bright blue, and he places his hand on the seal itself, on this gate, and the metal begins to shift, opening with this soft kind of blue light, and a rush of cold encapsulates around him, and the seal then closes and waiting. So then we cut back to the Garistro breaking through this, barricade that we've kind of set up, and kind of comes over to Callie, gets a couple hits in on Callie, and just as we think that kind of all is lost, and we're trying, these 4 kind of Warforged showed up, and with this yellow light in their eyes, and we start making a plan to run back towards the temple. We cut back inside again to the inside of the temple, and they watch as, there's a barricade against the door, and this Garistro outside is just hammering away the other Garistro, not the one we were fighting. And as this happens, this blue light starts emanating from the seal behind and it kind of starts in almost like a pointed, like a beam, and it comes out of the seal, and it hits the Garistro straight in its eye, almost burning it with cold, like a searing liquid nitrogen burn straight through its head, given like with mist of cold kind of coming straight through it, straight through the back of its head as it slumps to the floor. This blue light begins to emanate further and further out throughout the entire temple, out the front of the door, as basking the entire area of Caradoc. It floods the chamber, the cold floods in with it. There's the yellow light that are in these Warforged that we see next to them is purged. It is like bursts from their body and is replaced with the blue light that happens. And then the seal opens fully, and out steps Kokoni Buckwild, High Priest of Arathis. He is shirtless, with one gun slung over his back, his long gun that has new runes carved into it, growing bright blue, with his gun now being awoken. And it's quite a sight to see, because the adamantium plate that was in his chest previously, as placed there by the King Velsum and his father, has been replaced with a brass and copper plate of concentric circles that seem to be moving with intricate designs. Cogman's heart, the seal, was the seal that was kept in Caradoc, and Arathis has placed it in Kokoni's chest. He has Cogman's gun as well, the Lawbringer, and his vision comes back to him, hearing the voice of Arathis over his shoulder. She says, I've taken the time to make some adjustments. You now carry the seal with you. You are the last line of defense. And the seal begins to close behind him. The Warforged near us turn as well, and the 2 behind the Garistro come over and make but near that was standing over Callie, make quick work of it, as this blue light emanates all throughout Caradoc, and it's almost if the city comes to life, this mechanical hum that's emanated as Arathis seems to have brought life back to the Warforged. And that was where we ended it. It was a long-ass fight, really hard, some big hits in there. Just, guys, some really amazing D&D, some fantastic storytelling. Our next session happening Saturday. This is going to be February 1st, I believe. Same time, same place. I'm looking forward to seeing you all. And as usual, there'll be some fan theories after about 10 seconds. But other than that, love y'all. Penguins have long necks. Goats make strange noises. And is it Saturday yet? Love you guys. Okay, that's quite enough of that. What a fucking amazing session. Like, just a beautiful amount of storytelling in that. I am so, like, I know that Tim is just this amazing storyteller, and then every time we see these, like, narrative threads converging, it's just so beautiful. For me, for me as Emma, the image of Kokanee coming through the seal, just this kind of, like, new man with a new gun, is really outstanding. And we don't know what happened in that workshop. We don't know what Cogman did. But his sacrifice is, you know, his giving of his heart at Arathis' request for Kokanee, for the betterment of her people. Like, that's amazing. Her ability to now ascend, give Kokanee life again, and breathe life back into her city, like Caradoc, this place where her entire civilization was, you know, one of the cradles of her, you know, power. And as the ice plane kind of gets locked away, like, that's it. Like, we're never going to be able to visit her like that again. We did our part to help with that. Fuck, that's like just really beautiful storytelling. I love that kind of stuff. Wow. And like, what the fuck are we gonna do next? You know, like we have a seal. We just have a seal that's gonna be traveling with us all the time, and so that means we have a target on us. If we didn't before, we do now. But also Velsum doesn't have power over Kokanee anymore. So like, that's really good. Can't just kill him just because, and doesn't have to send anything back anymore. Because also Velsum thinks that Kokanee's dead. So we should probably use that to our advantage as well. Yeah, and I mean, we have the 3 other seals that we can look for. There's one in Clore, one in the Forgotten Expanse, which who knows anything about that, and Cinderfall. So those are a couple places that we can go. We should probably go back to Wulfrene for Kamea's coronation before we you know, do anything again, but we're gonna have to rest. And I hope we don't miss it. We can cast Nepi has some spells left. She can cast Sending to Kamea to at least hold off until we get there, because it would be nice to see it before we have to leave again on this big quest to go check in on the other seals, if that's what we're going to do. Oh man, some good D&D, you guys. I'm really curious what the other seals are, especially if they were smaller items. We've yet to come across like a seal that's a living, breathing creature. And if so, like, what is it? Where does it live? What does it look like? How old is it? Has it been around since the Dawn War? Like, what is that stuff? Fuck, yeah, pretty... Those are all the those are, like, so many of the questions that I have right now. I hope we get to go to Clore, because Clore is so fun, and Nepi wants to go back to her temple at some point, but the Amonkhet is... And we should probably go investigate the ruins of Amonkhet. That seems like a place we should go. Yeah, and I think that's where my head's at about it. I just want it to be Saturday so we can play again. Cool. Okay, well, that's it with your fan theories and your fan updates. Love y'all, and see ya on Saturday. Hello, everyone. Welcome to your episode 65 recap for the Adventures of Blackwater session occurring Saturday, February 1st, 2020. In-game date is early morning of the 3rd of Elamine to late day on the 3rd of Elamine, with a rest happening kind of over the midday break. And the title of this episode is As It Was Before. Okay, so we jump back a little bit as we open the session with Kokanee being pulled from the darkness, feeling like not a lot of time has passed. He awakens in Arathis' workshop, and he sees that it's quite simply, minimalistically decorated. Tools, projects in various states of completion, with machinery all over the place, model-sized miniatures. She speaks to him and says, "Welcome back," as she notices him waking, and her godlike, 12 to 15 foot high, and her ascended form shrinks into scale next to her as up pads her dog as well. And he sits up feeling achy and exhausted, and she heals and restores him. She tells him that his resurrection comes at a price. The heart that is inside him is a seal, and he looks down at his chest and sees this intricate concentric brass, gold, iron circlets, and as it beats, there's a faint moving and shifting of the plates. She calls it a gift from an old friend, and that she will have to build Cogman a new heart, and this was something he gave willingly, knowing this day would come. Inside Koganee's chest is a small key placed in the mechanical heart. Then it will be vulnerable if he dies, and it also depends on the way if he is to die again, if the seal will be broken. Cogman also wanted him to have the Lawbringer, which is a double-barrel pistol made by the legendary gun maker Mara Bell from the Age of the Dawn War. They discuss a little bit, and he's missing his holy symbol, and her dog walks up to him and bringing him a new, simpler holy symbol, and he affixes it to himself on a leather cord. She says that she will bring him to Caradoc to see his friends, and she thanks him for his help. They embrace, and it's a wonderful moment for Kokanee, a true feeling of connection with his goddess as he's pulled through the seal back to Caradoc. And as he does so, the radiant pulse flies through with this cold energy, obliterating the Greastro and the race behind him, and pulses out through the city. He comes back and sees the faces of Finn in there, and they welcome him, and they head out looking for everyone, and they walk through the corpse of the Greastro and the dead goat demons, and the Warforged are just tearing the rest apart, searching them throughout the city, and there's this kind of residual blue light through the city. The party walks up, and they are reunited. Neppy reunited with Kokanee, Spooky reunited with Kokanee, everyone thankful that he's back and alive. The first thing he does is ask for a shirt, because he's still shirtless. And they fill him in on the business with the seals and where everything is at. Soren and Brightwing and the High Elves emerge, and they speak of their pilgrimage as refugees, essentially, from Faway Tavar, the High Elves being the kind of, race looked down upon by the Wood Elves in the city and coming to make their own way in Caradoc. A Warforged comes up to us, actually speak of, Callie and Kokanee here around them, speaking in High Tongue, speaking of rebuilding the city as they've been awakened with the blue light emanating from their eyes. One comes up to us, a spear in hand, and speaks to Kokanee and Callie in High Tongue. She asks who we are, and her name is Searcher 97. She asks who the High Priest is, and is directed to Kokanee. We discuss with her a little bit about what's gone on and what she knows, and fill her in on the timeline. She knew Torin, actually, and through our conversation, we believe that there's enough Warforged to protect the city. She talks of Wolfreen as the site of a former military outpost, and Neppy shares a little information about what she knows about the forming of the city of Wolfreen, which her order was involved in. They discuss the seal in the Forgotten Expanse, and that sailors don't go there, a real Bermuda Triangle-esque energy, like thick fogs and legends of ships never returning, and the only maps there are speculative. Searcher 97 asks of the city of Manta, which was on the end of the peninsula. It used to be the city of the Raven Queen, used to house Thalbask, which is the tree of life, and she traces where it was on the map. She discussed rumors of the catastrophe in the city of Amonkhet, which is now ruins, and near the city of Bakal. The Forgotten Expanse of Manta, there was a Caraxian outpost at Sister's Watch, which might be useful for us to take a look at as we head on out. The Prime Guardian in Clore, named Race, and discuss the Lesser Titan in the jungle and fill everyone in on the goings-on with the vampires in Clore and the Order of the Key. We discuss plans of potentially accessing the study. Some people are pitching to go after Velsum or to go after the Forgotten Lex, we talk to Lex, and she decides that she's going to stay in Caradoc and learn, and then we'll make her way back to Wulfrene in a timely manner whenever she decides to go. She feels like there's a lot she can learn there if she is to be the new curator of the temple. Neppy asks Searcher, because she's there, she unrolls the tapestries that she had originally held in her bag during when they went to Caradoc the first time. Searcher identifies the man in the portrait as Cain, who was the brother of King Alton. And there was Queen Gwendolyn, Lillian, the high priestess, who we met, who had been kept, was alive and then kept alive by her faith, and then identifies Cain and alludes to the fact that he's the head of the Pleasure Wilds, one of the families in Clore. And he's the king's brother who fled the city before the siege of Caradoc, and he was next in line to the throne, very charismatic, and didn't say where he was going. And so Neppy agrees to return the tapestries to the temple, and she gives those back to them after holding them for safekeeping. So, and Spooky would wish to go to the library. They lead her to a shop front, and they find a safe, and she kind of goes into the shop, and it finds this tinkering and toy maker shop, and there's these fine detail tools, and they take those, and they open up a safe, and there's this clockwork firefly on the inside, which they take as well. They go for the library looking for any information, and Letters goes with them, trying to remove kind of the moisture from a book that seems to be interesting and will fall apart, and they open it. They use prestidigitation and some abjuration magic to try and fix the book, and they manage to do so, and they find a tome of history on magic and the Warforged, or some Warforged who have a knack for the arcane. So we... people kind of continue on with their business throughout the day. We are working towards, they discuss, Spooky finds in the back of the book, that they were working towards a type of magic to harness inborn mechanical workings, so a clockwork magic, like manipulation of mechanical, and at the back of the book she finds a spell scroll for a 3rd level spell called Gear Barrage, and there were lots of jokes about the Gear Wars. Back at the temple, Kokanee and Neppy go to a walk to the ruined temples, and they reconnect after Kokanee being away, and Neppy speaks of Kokanee. They discuss him being his own man and free now, and they, while they're walking, and they look through Cogman's old room and find a writing desk. Kokanee goes to open it, and it shoots him with a blunderbuss, and she heals. Neppy heals Kokanee. They find inside the desk some notebooks, some parchment, and a diary. Throughout the temple, they also find Cogman's tools and pistol cleaning tools, which Kokanee takes after pretty much assuming that they would want to have them, and some small effigies of Arathis, which they take as well, but to potential return to the other temple, and potentially to take some to Wulfrene. Neppy goes back to the temple to help heal folks who are injured after fighting with the demons. Kokanee goes to the library. They all return to the temple for the rest. As they go through, we see about 250 Warforged assembled in the square, setting up rudimentary defenses and fixing, and they're discussing the days ahead and the plans. Before bed, Neppy prays to her goddess, and she's feeling a pull to go towards the Forgotten Expanse, especially with it being the lost city of the Raven Queen. Knowing the history of the Raven Queen with respect to her goddess, and what that might mean with this lost information that she, has been lost to time and thousands of years ago after the fall of the Raven Queen. She asks Snep-Thisiket for a sign that she's on the right path, and discusses wishing, after everything that's happened with the seals and knowing that her order likely could have done more, she feels a sense of duty and responsibility towards keeping the seal that is now housed in Kokanee's chest safe. for as long as it is a seal itself. We then all rest. The next morning, Caradoc we wake, or it's actually like later in the day, so it's probably like the afternoon sun, because it was like very early morning, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at that point, maybe even earlier. So we finally all rest. Callie had been sleeping the whole time. Caradoc is beautiful. All the bronze oxidized green, and it's perhaps bigger than Wolfrine. We wake up about noon or 1. Callie calls Kamea over the sending stone and tells her Kokonie's alive, and Kamea discusses the coronation being quiet, that the ground is hallowed, the rift is closed. Most of the demons dispatched, but some fled the city into the woods. They don't know that the city is resilient and seeking to regain normalcy. Callie tells Kamea that she met Arathis, and that it was quick but a wonderful experience, and she sends her love to Jar. As Callie kind of goes through, she finds about 5 javelins, for her gear. So Lex, Spooky gives her long gun to Lex, and Lex fires it and it works. And also Lex gives Kokonie his Bible back. Finan then checks in with Relauven and tells him he wants to continue to expand his knowledge, and that he was wandering for a long time, and Relauven's discovering his new form, and that he has some unfinished business, and that he was betrayed a long time ago but can wait a bit longer. He has heard from the Chained Oblivion, but this was before his time when the Chained Oblivion was seen away. Finan asks again about Ceresite and discusses this crystal that harnesses chaotic energy, and it was a focus used by his mother's people, the Illyrians, to enhance their magic abilities, and that Ceresite, if he finds it, can fix his staff, but he's not sure where, but knows it was mined in Illyria. At that point, we all reconvene and decide that it should be about time for us to plane shift to the plane of air, so that we can bounce back to Wolfrine. We bounce there, and before Neppy can call, because, well, she doesn't, but she should have, and we get there, Chi greets us, and that is where we ended. Our next session happening this Saturday, so that will be the 8th. Yeah, there we go. Same time, same place, 7:30 at our house. I'm so looking forward to it. Miss you guys. And yeah, is it Saturday yet? Okay, that's quite enough of that. Hello, welcome to the theories and speculation and fan theory section of the recap. Yeah, some really interesting stuff this week. I'm so happy to have Kokonie back, and it was nice to spend a little bit of time in Caradoc. It's really cool to see the Warforged kind of taking through. I am so curious about Manta. Like, I have questions about Manta. That was at the end of the peninsula, especially considering it's like the city of the Raven Queen, and that's got so much to do with Neppy's history. I'm wondering what we'll find if we do end up going to Sister's Watch, or like if we're going to be able to charter a boat there, I think, because that's what we decided to do, because we were going to bounce to airplane, then Wolfrine, then we were going to go to the airplane again, and then Spooky was going to take us to Icemeet, because she's been there, as Lemon Fable, the worst bard to come through Icemeet. So yeah, so not a lot for me to kind of hum and haw on this week. I don't have too many fan theories. I'm hoping that we can find this seal in the Forgotten Expanse and make sure it's safe, or move it, or something along those lines. So looking forward to session this week. It has been a long week, and I am always so happy to see you guys. Okay, love you lots. See you soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Adventures of Blackwater, episode 66 recap. Session date happening February 8th, 2020. In-game date starts from late on the 3rd of Elamine and then extends to the morning of the 5th of Elamine. Yeah, okay. So we arrive in the plane of air there, so they see the like beautiful floating islands, the Temple of the Winged Serpent, the Air Genasi, the Aarakocra, of many and all shapes and sizes and plumages, and then also the cloud giants that are up there as well. So Spooky and Letters end up going to the library. And Letters looks up some things on golem construction, mostly keg golems. He doesn't find much, but he does find some notes on a wizard who'd been experimenting creating paper golems, and culminating, like basically animating paper using the power of the air element plane to make like paper swarms. Letters gets enough of like a start of this mage's notes and ends up taking kind of notes about it. Spooky starts looking up stuff about her pants, the Dawn War, the Chained Oblivion. Finds some like brief references to the Chained Oblivion locked away in the abyss. Not too much more that she didn't already know.
Neppy and Kokanee are hanging around the temple, and they realize they still have the Staff of Akkadi with them.
Cast legend lore on it, and she does, and she gets this kind of distant voice with this series of images of this white willow tree in an oasis, this small pond with buildings surrounding it. An Aarakocra moves to it taking a bow, and she hears the staff of the Herald of Akkadi, carved from the bow of Thalbask by Siral the Windborn. The staff was gifted power by the breath of the Storm Serpent. The Aarakocra carves the bow into the staff, this like flying, there's air whipping around and flashes of lightning through a storm. And then just as this power tends to crackle through the staff, behind the staff, Neppy sees the face, or what she assumes to be the face of Akkadi, which is pretty intense. And very cool. So she kind of comes out of her vision and says, yes, I think you need to give this back to them. I think it's from here, meaning of which that Zach has probably stole it. So Kokanee and Neppy spend the day kind of at rest. Callie also spends the day resting, biding her time to get back to Wulfrene, as we had just left Caradoc.
They find Chi.
And he returns the Staff of Akkadi to her. She is like crying tears of joy and, you know, gives great thanks to him, talks about Zakkus stealing it when he left. She thanks him immensely for the gift, and wants to know that it would not be forgotten. At the end of the day, Spooky casts Sending to her mom. She talks about Barmwich. Her mom tells back that Barmwich is healing and sends love. And Spooky also talks to Arathis and gives thanks to her for keeping Kokanee alive, and thanks her. Her magic for the moment is both metallic-y blue, but tinged with a little bit of yellow at the edges. So her magic, now that she's a follower of Arathis in her own life, she can see kind of the magic still retaining that kind of yellow essence as from the pants, but definitely tinged blue a little bit by her connection to Arathis. Letters cast Sending to Clack, calling him and talking about being sweet bros, and that he, you know, cares about him and hope he's okay and he's healing and all that kind of good stuff. And Neppy cast Sending to Hade, the Mother Superior at her temple, you know, checking in how she's doing and how everyone's doing, and letting them know that she's going to the Forgotten Expanse, feeling that she's getting the pull there, especially with what she's learned about it, being the, you know, kind of the Manta being the patron city of the Raven Queen, and with Manta no longer being kind of in existence. Hade sends back that there are fewer pilgrims, the temple is quiet, and Neppy also casts Sending to Isa, the Samut priestess at the Temple of Nephthisiket in Wulfrene, basically telling her to ready the temple for the prayers of the Raven Queen the following evening. Big deal for Neppy's temple. This is kind of like an honoring of everything that came before them, which they have been following for, you know, millennia. So a big deal. We rest that evening and we rise. We prepare to leave. Chi greets us and sends off, and says, you know, we let her know that we'll be back. And she says that's fine. We pop back to Wulfrene and kind of go about our business, knowing that it will take the talisman a day to recharge. Kokanee buys another shirt, identical to the one he has, because his previous one was missing or ripped up. So he now has two shirts. Also canon that he has one pair of pants, probably. But his shirt is identical to the previous shirt. That's it. Callie, Neva, Spooky, Neppy, and Jar go out for lunch, and they all go have a ladies' luncheon. We didn't actually roleplay that, but I can assume it was wonderful, with like lots of like wine for the grown-ups and juice for Jar, and like I'm imagining like a big charcuterie spread, with lots of sweets as well. And we figured out that Jar basically stays at the Gatestone Keep with Kamea when we're out of town, but then comes back to stay at the Gatestone Keep at Blackwater Keep when we're in town, and kind of bounces back and forth. A true latchkey kid energy, pretty safe, and everybody knows her. Yeah, but Bix, so she goes to find Hector, and louder footsteps come behind and open the door, and they meet Bix. Bix is a dragonborn. She's bronze, and she's kind of a bit taller, a little bit slender, wearing like a brown leather duster jacket with over leather pants and boots, and like this kind of white tunic-y top with like studded leather like armor, with like a kind of a big purple or reddish scarf at her throat with kind of a symbol of Pelor near it, and also one of the Order of the Key necklaces there as well. She's wearing the symbol of Pelor is embroidered into the back of her jacket, and she wears these kind of like round reflective sunglasses, essentially, which are goggles of night vision, but they are just skinned to look way cooler. She also carries a big fucking crossbow with her because she's dope and so fun. So she says hi and fills them in on the goings on. She lets them know that she was sent here this morning from Clore. She asks them, she says that things have been heating up in Clore and that the guilds there have been intensifying violence with each other, and she's really worried about what's happening, and that a couple of the higher ups in the Order of the Key, the Prime Guardian of Clore, the Prime Guardian of Clore, of the seal in Clore, and a couple of the other people in the
have sent Bix to let them know that they are going to be the ones looking after the seal in Clore, and they've got it handled. They're most worried about one of the bigger guilds, which are the Pleasure Wilds.
Which is one of the families down there, with Kane as the head of the Pleasure Wilds. And we've heard the name Kane before, and I'll tell you that in a moment. So she has a scroll of teleport with them to bring her back. Bring herself and bring them back.
The group talks to Hector about the importance of potentially accessing the study, which
he doesn't really know where it is, but he might have an idea where it could be. He thinks that it's in a temple of Ioun. Something kind of came to him in a dream. It was a grand library with a solitary figure moving about, kind of this endless library. He researched certain temples, and while there is like, you know, the Temple of Pelor, the biggest one is in Wulfrene. The Temple of Nepthisiket, the main one, Temple Philenis, is in the deserts of the Amonkhet Peninsula. There is no like main temple to Ioun, or if there is, its like location has been lost to history. So has this idea to potentially relocate the seals, which might be an option, but also knowing that stuff heating up down in Clore, they may have to go back and take a look at what's going down there to potentially make sure the seal is safe or fight off the things that are attempting to attack it, etc. Hector will go with them. He'll go with them down to Clore, because as the Prime Guardian of the seal in Wulfrene, there is no longer a seal in Wulfrene, so his efforts would probably be better served elsewhere. And he will arrange passage for the rest of the Order in Wulfrene to go help out down in Clore as necessary as things are heating up.
Bix thanks Hector for everything that he's done, and that she's excited to work with him on a closer term basis than they ever have before. This is kind of their first time meeting, but she'd heard a decent amount about him.
So we all reunite at Blackwater Keep. Before we do that, Letters is talking to all of the Gravel boys. He's talking to, you know, Gorge. Is it Gorge? Gregor, and Clack and Gorge. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And says that they're leaving to the Forgotten Expanse. He wants the Blackwater Tavern and the Bar and Grill to stay relevant, that everything needs to be on brand, and he wants to return to some new menu items and them feeling pressed. There's some discussions about like chicken with like rock spice or spiced rock, something along those lines. It was great. I'm very much looking forward. Gorge has ideas for some new cuisine, but doesn't seem to get why people don't eat rocks on the material plane. In any case, we all reunite back at Blackwater Keep. Bix meets everyone. Bix thinks she gives Letters a once-over, and Bix and Neppy meet, which was very fun and very silly to code switch back and forth between the two of them.
They discuss the plans for Bix and Hector to handle what's going on down in Clore.
Discusses and like talks about Kane, the head of the Pleasure Wilds, and they think that he's also likely a vampire, but he thinks that this head of this family, Kane, which we're pretty sure is the guy who was on the tapestry of Caradoc, that's not a spoiler, that's like the truth, they think they're related in some way, shape, or form. Do we know how? No. That they're not coming with us to the Expanse, even though it's going to be likely a crazy pirate ride. But he gives Spooky the sash of the Four Winds, and names Spooky captain of their boat, and wishes them safe sailing. So it's at that point that everyone retires down to the Blackwater Tavern for drinks for the evening. Bix and Letters have a drinking competition. First he serves up dwarvish wine, and they both seem to be doing okay. Next comes fire whiskey. Bix handles it like a champ. Letters, ooh, kind of uneasy stomach. This like liquid ice, yeah, they're like, or liquid nitrogen. Yeah, or like it's like cold, but also hot and burny at the same time. And they both seem to be doing okay. And then there's some rum from Clore, like pirate rum from Clore that is good, but definitely they're teetering on the edge of not doing so great. And then comes the last drink, which is called pleasure wine, or pleasure milk. It is like a numbing substance, super strong alcohol, almost like liquid heroin. It like numbs you out. Letters champs it and does great, but is very drunk. Bix cannot handle it, and baby girl pukes her guts out, casts Lesser Restoration on herself and says, no more of that, thank you, but we're dancing. And it's pretty decent, and everyone gets the bar dancing, and everyone's having a good time. I like to think that Callie and Spooky and everyone are there, and they're having a great dancing occasion. Kokanee's there, maybe not dancing, but still enjoying the festivities. At some point, Neppy slips out to go do prayers at her temple, which we will likely get to next session, but I did not want to disrupt the fun that we were having with Bix. At that point, everyone else is drinking and then heads to bed for the evening. They go to collect Hector and depart for Clore. The rest of the group then meets up in the morning and departs once more to the plane of air, and then bounces back, and then that is where we left off. Also through this entire thing, the second we got home, pretty sure Callie was having a lot of sex with Kamea. I'm pretty sure that's what they were doing the whole time. This is still under a week, I believe, since they've been married. Let me double check the timeline here. Oh yeah, we're like 3 days since they've been married. So happy honeymoon. I actually don't think I have any big spoilers or anything like that. Not that I can share anyway with stuff that would make sense that, yeah. In any case, okay, next session happening on Sunday. That's gonna be February what is the date? February 16th, since we got the holiday Monday. Same time, same place. Love y'all. Is it Sunday yet?
Thanks for listening to this installment of the Blackwater Audio Archives covering the 6 months arc. If you like what you hear, Come hang out with us on Saturdays for our main campaign at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at twitch.tv/BlackwaterD&D. We also keep discussing lore on Mondays at Chatwater at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we dive into the latest episodes as well in all their juicy glory. And remember, it's dangerous to go it alone these days because a 2,500-year-old lich might rip your heart out. Be safe!